Hello, my friends. Let's see this here. There we go. Hello, brothers and sisters. Hope you're doing well out there. Welcome back to Forever Conscious Research Channel. So, today we're going to get into Kenneth Leth's near-death experience. Happened at the age of 8 years old. And what happened was it also brought back memories and experiences of a past life recall. And then it also showed an offer for him to be reincarnated. And then you also have some pre-birth memories. And then later on, he also acknowledges the memory wipe, but doesn't really see the issue with it. What's interesting about the reincarnation offer is the timeline that he falls in. And you'll see that when we get into it, and how it seems that it happened fairly quickly. So, interesting case to say the least. It's a long one. Not going to lie, we're going to be here a while tonight, so buckle up. Probably looking maybe 3 hours. So, just want to give you a heads up on that. Okay. So, let's get rolling. Let's not delay anymore. Okay, so I just want to also first give a big thank you to JeffMara Podcast. I do suggest checking out his channel. He's got a lot of great content. I know many of you out there already know his channel. It's loaded with near-death experiencer accounts, interviews, and Jeff asks some great questions all the time, including in this interview. He knows his stuff, and lets the person really tell their experience. And this is one of the more longer ones I've seen him do. He usually kind of limits them to about an hour, or he'll have them on for another segment. But this one is one of his more longer ones. So anyways, again, thank you to JeffMara Podcast for providing the source clip. And be sure to go over and check out his channel, subscribe, and you'll like what you see. A lot of good stuff. All right, let's roll.
Today's guest is Ken Leth. Ken is the author of the book A Child Goes to Heaven, in which he writes about his amazing near-death experience and how he was shown future events that would take place in the United States. His book reminds us that life does not end with death, but far from it. Life begins with death. Ken, thank you very much for giving me some of your time this evening, and welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thanks for inviting me. It's always a pleasure. If I can share anything that's interesting for your viewers, I'll do it.
Oh, I'm sure it's going to be interesting. So, we know that you've had an NDE, but did you have any paranormal or spiritual experiences before this?
Yeah. During my near death, I went through a life review, and I was shown, and I was 8 years old at the time. So I was shown everything about my life up until I became 8. So I got to view my own birth. And it's been a lifelong integration. Because of that, I was shown spiritual things that happened to me when I was younger. I remember being shown who my parents would be. So I believe I lived a previous life. Actually, if you want me to talk about it, I could tell you a little bit about my previous life, because I do have memories.
Yeah, that's great.
Let's just start at the very beginning, my earliest memories of life, period. And that would be somewhere in northern France. And I remember it being very green, very beautiful. But it was probably, I'm assuming it was the Middle Ages, because the house we lived in was like straw and dirt. We slept on straw on the floor. There was a central fire in the house to keep us warm. So the fire was like on the floor. And there were people there with me. I do remember a couple of women. I think there were some kids. My memories are kind of vague about them. I remember we went to a river that wasn't far away, and we did a lot of work there. And it was like there was a grass or there were reeds or something growing close to the river. And we harvested those. That was part of our work. I remember at one point there was like an argument or something happened. Somebody got really angry with me, and I might have gotten into a fight. It might have been with my wife, but I'm not real sure. But then after that, what I remember is getting really sick, and I died alone in that hut. And my strongest memories are floating up above my body that I could see laying on the hay and floating in and out of my body because I was really sick. And I remember women in my family coming in and out of the hut, not knowing what to do. They were real upset because I was dying. And they finally decided to save themselves. They better leave me because they were afraid of getting sick too. Mm-hmm. So that's why I died alone in that hut. And then once I separated, then I went up and up and up, and I could look down. I could see my body, but then I went higher and I could see the top of the hut, and then I went up. Then my very next memory is up in heaven. And I'm meeting with a group of spirits. This type of thing I'm about to describe, I've heard other near-death people call them the Council of Elders. Yeah. And it's like this Council of Elders up in heaven are very powerful spirits, entities. They help determine if your spiritual growth is good enough to stay in heaven.
Right there. See, lines up with all the other research we've shown here, with near-death experiences, with pre-birth memories, life between lives. Yes. So we see these council of elders, and they are the ones who determine what you're going to do. Again, this isn't a sovereign decision. This isn't a decision that we are making on our own. Yes, we do have to make a decision, but we're, essentially going along with the ride and giving these beings power as if they have a right to determine where we're going to go and what we're going to do. So really, really important point. Lines up, right up there with everything else. So let's continue.
They help determine if your spiritual growth is good enough to stay in heaven, or whether you should be sent back for more learning. Well, unfortunately, in my case, they asked me several questions. Apparently, my answers weren't good enough. And it was determined that I should go back to Earth and live another life. And here I am.
Apparently, my answers weren't good enough. So they're going to throw me right back to Earth. Ugh, poor thing.
They asked me several questions. Apparently, my answers weren't good enough.
Ugh.
And it was determined that I should go back to Earth and live another life. And here I am.
Poor guy.
So every day I try to learn something new if I can. But I had somebody with me that was like a counselor or a support person. I guess you could say a guardian angel, somebody that was there for me and just for me, that helped me answer those questions. And so he took me out of this room where this council was, and told me that because I didn't answer the questions and they weren't satisfied with my answers, that I would have to go back to Earth. And then he opened up, like it was below us, and he opened up kind of just like a round tunnel, I guess you could say, where we could look down to the Earth. And he showed me a very happy couple in a room that would have been like a living room. And they were a young couple, and it looked like they were married. They were very much in love, and they were very happy. And my guardian angel told me that if you think that these people are nice, if you're comfortable with them, we can send you down and you can become their child.
Okay, so again, this lines up with pre-birth memory accounts where the person could be looking down or even get like a direct preview of their parents. And, you know, the person decides, oh, well, you know, I'm going to pick this one, that one, or, you know, I like the way this couple is and stuff like that. And then they kind of go forward and make a decision. Now, what I think is going on is it's pretty much a setup job from the jump, because the other research that kind of links in with this is the past life regressions. And the past life regressions show that, yes, we are indeed picking out our parents, and it seems that we know them very well and that we've reincarnated with them here multiple times. Now, just, you know, it may not be that we reincarnate with the same exact spirit / soul, whatever you want to call it, each incarnation, but they may be involved in our lives in some form, or possibly even go like every other one, something along those lines. Either way, there's like a core group of entities that are beings, spirits that we are involved with when we come down here that we already know, but because of the memory wipe, we're very in the dark about those relationships. So yeah, really important to put that out there. And again, correlates with everything, the looking down, the choosing. Now, not everyone is always looking down. Again, sometimes people essentially like teleport into the parent's home and just kind of get a feel for them. But I really think the whole thing is a setup job, because the guides, the council are the ones trying to kind of needle us into making a decision with certain parents, certain life scripts, certain careers, certain maybe even memories like Harold had. I know Harold probably was watching today, and you know, he had to basically eliminate a easier, better lifestyle in exchange to retain certain memories that he had pre-birth. So sorry for the long rant, but let's continue.
And they can raise you. You can live another life. And I agreed to it.
Dun, dun, dun.
So I had a very close relationship with my mother all my life. And I remember inside of her, and I remember feeling her emotions. If she was really happy, I knew it. If she was laughing, I loved it when she laughed. But if she was sad, I could pick up on that too. Actually, some of your viewers might think this is crazy, but I think I remember one night when they were having too.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, I was being shaken around a lot, and that was really unusual, and I didn't understand it. But yeah, when Mom had her, that was really something. I didn't know what was going on there. But okay, beyond all that, then the day I was born, the doctor made a mistake, and this was 1955. And the doctor was really old. And I remember being pushed out of my mother, part of the natural birth process. I remember the muscles tugging on me and pushing me. And I remember cooperating with it because it felt natural. But the birth stalled. And the reason it stalled was because the doctor was really old and he made a mistake. He was giving my mother laughing gas to ease the pain. But he wanted to take a break and go talk about his hunting and whatnot with my father, who was just in the next room. So he put the gas mask next to my mother's face and turned it on, and then told her, just take a breath of this laughing gas whenever you have a lot of pain, and I'll be back as soon as I can. Well, he took a long break. Somehow that mask got caught on my mother's face, and she got so much that she passed out from it.
Wow.
And this is during birth. And she told me later on her deathbed, many years later on her deathbed, she told me that it almost killed her. The doctor had to revive her, and as a result, the birth was really rough and everything, but I have memories of leaving my body during the birth. And I separated from my body, and I went out into, I don't know, it just seemed like I just went into another room is what it felt like.
Okay, before he continues, leaving the body while in the womb, I don't hear it too much when someone's in the middle of being born, but I know I've seen quite a few accounts where basically the spirit is going around roaming in the astral, and usually like in the earth plane level, just exploring, having fun, doing whatever it's doing, and then goes in and out of the womb essentially while it's cooking, you know? So yeah, so it's interesting to hear that. It almost seems like the mother was obviously having issues, and maybe he was having issues as a result of that, and it forced that kind of out-of-body experience for him. But or it's just something that could happen regularly and we're just not as aware of it.
Out into, I don't know, it just seemed like I just went into another room is what it felt like. But there were a lot of colors. And then I was met by another entity, and it seemed like it was a little girl. And she said, come on, come with me. And she took care of me. And we flew around in this place full of colors. And we flew around, we had a lot of fun. But eventually, another entity, another being came to me and said, you must be born, you must go back to your body. So I did. And so I went back to my body, and then after the doctor took me out of my mother, and it was a rough birth. I mean, he had to use tongs and, you know, remove me, actually. After he had me out, I wouldn't breathe and I wouldn't respond. And so he had to strike me pretty hard. I say spank, but actually he just struck me like a doctor does to a baby to get them to take a breath. And I wouldn't breathe. So he had to strike me several times. And I remember being in and out of my body during that. Eventually, he struck me when I was back in, and then I felt it and I cried. And then from then on, I stayed in my body. The reason I can remember all this, I'm certain, is because during my near death at 8 years old, I reviewed my birth. And so I was shown all this, and I'm certain that's why I remember it, because I know there's skeptics out there.
That's very interesting, you know, and it sounds like maybe you died from the plague in the Middle Ages. It's an interesting time jump that you went from the Middle Age 500 years or 600 years or 400 years later, which kind of made me theorize that you can enter lives maybe on any time.
Okay, I think that is I love Jeff's questions. I do. He does a great job at asking some deep questions and catches really good stuff. So think about it. Like, if you're running this place, wouldn't you set it up in a way where you would be dumping us into various timelines? Because remember, time doesn't exist in the astral, so it only essentially exists here. So you could be even experiencing different Earths. We've talked about copies of Earth being a possibility. Not saying it's what's going on, but I do feel that there are other physical realities, possibly even carbon copies of Earth, but maybe different time periods that are being represented in those, because it does seem like he was reincarnated pretty damn quick. So make of it what you will. It's just a thought.
Yeah, exactly. So, and my memories of my previous life were very vague until, well, just in the last 10 or 15 years, a lot of those memories have come back to me. But that's because I keep talking about my near-death experience. And it seems the more I talk about it, the more things start coming back to me, and I remember them. But I remember as a small child playing in my parents' backyard. I remember just one day saying to myself, I think I used to live in France. Yes. And it was very green. I remember that. I remember telling myself that, and I don't know where it came from. But, that's kind of how it is when you're a near-death person. That things come to you, and it's hard to explain.
Have you ever been hypnotized to see if you had, picked up anything else that you haven't been able to remember?
Another great question.
That would be interesting, wouldn't it? No, I've never. Yeah, if you know somebody, tell them to call me.
I wish I did.
We'll see what happens. So beyond my birth, which was pretty rough, my mother told me that I wasn't responsive for several weeks after I was born. And the doctor told her that because of the laughing gas that I could be brain damaged. So all my life, she assumed there's something wrong with me. Because she always explained it as you always had like quirks in your personality that people would pick up on, but they wouldn't understand. And so she was kind of protected me. And I had a school teacher once tell me, she said, "You're not as bright as your sister. You're not as conscious. You seem to be in another place. Where do you go when you leave the room?" I guess I was daydreaming. And I didn't know what to say. I was just a little kid. You just don't know how to respond to that stuff. But I was labeled a daydreamer and hard to reach by my teachers. So then my next memory of something spiritual happening was in the crib. And my mother had put me down to sleep. And my brother wanted to play. And he didn't want me to sleep. He was a couple years older. He didn't want me to sleep. He kept arguing with my mother. Well, why does he have to go to sleep now? We were just playing. Why do you have to put him to sleep? And Mom told him to leave me alone. And so I was just starting to snooze. He was left alone for a few minutes. He came into the nursery and started poking me and waking me up. And I started to cry. But he was being kind of mean about it. And so I really cried hard. Like I felt hurt, that he was hitting me because he was mad. And I was really sad about it. And Mom came upstairs and dragged him out of the room and scolded him. And while I was laying there crying, there was like 2, maybe 3 balls of light entities that came into the room. And they were floating around the crib. And they were telling me not to be sad. And they started to sing to me. And I started to sing with them. And then Mom came into the room. And she couldn't figure out, why I got so happy. She was glad, but she couldn't figure out why I got so happy. And I couldn't talk. She said, well, okay, let's go to sleep. And I went right to sleep. Those balls of light that came to visit me, they were very soothing. So
I just want to rewind this segment. I apologize. I overlooked something here.
And she couldn't figure out, why I got so happy. She was glad, but she couldn't figure out why I got so happy. And they started to sing to me. And I started to sing with them. And then Mom came into the room. And she couldn't figure out, why I got so happy. She was glad, but she couldn't figure out why I got so happy.
Okay, so this is what I meant to say. I apologize for having to rewind that one so much. Okay, so one of the things I ran across and even tested myself, which is crazy, and any of you out there who kind of has ever worked with orbs or energy can try this yourself too, or even just for the heck of it, okay? With if you kind of like distort some lighting around you, or like a black light sometimes, or even if you have your camera phone and you have the flash on, make sure it's kind of like at night, or it could even be during the day if you want, but I would try it at night and try screaming at the top of your lungs, like you're in trouble, like you're in pain, and flash a picture. more often than not, I'm not going to say every time, but more often than not, you're going to see a bunch of orb-like beings or entities in your surrounding. Now, essentially what he experienced was some sort of entities that were there in his time of need. Now, we've seen that in other cases, actually in many cases, where something comes to soothe them, but then it could also be the reverse where they're coming and like feeding on it too. It's a really, really interesting thing that goes on with that. Feel free to give it a try, but it shows kind of like the louche aspect of things too. Now, I found orbs to be pretty much harmless, but again, these are etheric entities we know barely anything about, but most of the orbs I've ever been involved with the exception of maybe a handful of years ago where I was kind of not putting my intention out there properly. That's another thing, is if you're going to do this, you put your intention out there that you want to be interacting with things or entities of their own free will, of their own desire, okay, and that you don't want any harm given to you. Where I kind of went wrong years ago was not fine-tuning the script that I was using before choosing to interact or summon with these things. So, all right, that's enough.
I couldn't talk. She said, well, okay, let's go to sleep. And I went right to sleep. Those balls of light that came to visit me, they were very soothing. So, and I believe I was shown that in my near-death as well when I was 8. Okay, spiritual encounters beyond that. Well, then we'd have to skip until I was in the 2nd grade, and I was probably 7, 6 going, no, I would have been 7. So that was a year before my near-death. I was playing with a good friend in school on the playground, and we raced to I don't know what you call it. It was called a jungle gym, but it was a square structure, pipes, and you could climb inside it or around it, kind of structured so you could climb out like a ladder, but you can get inside. It's shaped like a cube. Once you got up to the top, there was a platform and you could jump onto something like a fireman's pole, and we could slide down to the ground. Well, we raced, and I beat my friend up to the top of the jungle gym. And I'm standing there waiting for him, and he told me to wait. So I just sort of crossed my arms and leaned back, waiting, thinking there was something back there like a railing to hold me. And there wasn't. Wow. And I fell straight back into the open air. Uh-oh. When I realized, and I was probably only like 6 feet up in the air, but for a little 2nd grader, that's pretty high. When I realized that I'd made a mistake, I literally jumped out of my skin. Because the next thing I remembered was I was floating and I could see my body on the ground, crumpled up at the base of the pole. And I was next to that pole floating. So I kept thinking, I'm falling, I have to stop. And I kept reaching for the pole, and my arms went right through it. Solid steel, and my arms went through that pole.
That's because he was in his etheric body. Wasn't the physical part, at least from what I'm gathering here. But who the hell knows, right? I mean, we live in this weird virtual reality construct, this holographic realm, I guess.
And so I had an out-of-body experience. So I eventually floated down to my body, and I'm just standing there looking at my body, trying to figure out what is going on here. I had no past reference. I had no idea what it was. Then I heard some girls on the playground scream and run for the teacher because they saw me fall. So the teacher came running. Those girls came running. A whole group of boys came running, laughing all at once. It was just like a herd. And I'm standing over my body, and I'm like, okay, I don't like this. I don't want to be surrounded by these people. So I purposely jumped back in. And my spirit really wouldn't stay in my body very well. I kept trying to come back out. but I finally stayed in. The teacher showed up and told everybody to clear out and leave me alone. And, you know, she checked me for broken bones and whatnot. And all I could say to her was, I think I passed out. Mm. And I had no reference. I had no idea what had happened. Mm. And she got really worried. It's like, if this kid is passing out and falling down, I better call his mother. So she did. Mm. And so, yeah, Mom came and picked me up. It's a very small town, so it was just a couple minutes, you know. She came and picked me up and took me home, and I slept on the couch the rest of the day. And I kept telling my parents what happened. You know, we talked about it at dinner time that night. Mm-hmm. And I could tell they just they didn't think anything of it. When I said my arm went through that pole, they looked at me like, wow, you must have had a real bump in the head. Mm-hmm. You know, they thought it was all just fantasy. Mm-hmm. So that was the next thing.
Did you grow up in a religious house? Like, did you go to church or anything?
Yeah, I went to Sunday school and I went.
Now, like what he's going to talk about here is important because remember how we talk about the belief-based system within near-death experiences? Well, because of his upbringing and what he's about to share with us is exactly how we see part of his NDE play out.
Or anything?
Yeah, I went to Sunday school and I went to church pretty regular, but my mother was the religious one. Dad was, well, he'd go along with it, but Mom and Dad would argue over the table about religion. And I remember one of Dad's big things was, well, what about the American Indians? Mm-hmm. You know, he said they had a real love of the land and they're very spiritual. What about their spirituality? Why do we have to go to a Christian church? And Mom, I can't remember what she said, but no, it had to be Jesus or nothing. So, so we went to a Lutheran church. It was okay, though. It was a good church, good people, you know, very supportive. So let's see. So it was about a year before I had my near death, and that came because of sickness. And I was in the 3rd grade. And I came home from school and I got really sick, and it turned out to be an appendicitis. But my parents kept me at home because they called the doctor and explained to him over the phone what was going on. And he told them it sounded like the flu and just keep me home. So, yeah, they kept me at home for like a week and a half, and then I finally turned really pale. Mm-hmm. And it scared my mother enough that she called the doctor again. So, yeah, doctor put me down on his table and he poked my gut, and I yelped because it was really sensitive. I didn't know it hurt until he touched me there. But as it turns out, my appendix had already burst.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. So within just a few minutes, the doctor sent me up to the hospital. And, you know, I was in a small room and nurses were getting me all ready for an operation. And my mom was running back and forth trying to make phone calls to my dad so he would find out, he would know. He had the kind of job where he was out of town. He spent a lot of time out of town on his job. So she had to reach him somehow. And there's no cell phones in those days. It was 1963, you know. So, yeah, it was pretty scary. I wasn't really scared about the idea of having an operation because I didn't know what it was. But, boy, when they put me on the gurney and started pushing me down that long, dark hall away from my mother, then I got pretty spooked.
Yeah.
You know. But you can understand that's just how a kid would be, you know. Then they didn't have, what do you call it, anesthetics, where they give you a shot and put you out. They didn't have that back then. They used ether on me. So, yeah, they used ether. And then once I was passed out, Then my next spiritual experience happened. So, excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
So, my the ether, I think what initially happened is the ether sort of just hit me and struck my consciousness and drove me out of my body, is what it felt like. Because once I was out, I wasn't just out, I was in another place.
Mm-hmm.
So I was floating around in darkness, and I started to become self-aware that I was still me. I kept thinking, I'm still me, I'm still here. So the thought was like, I think, therefore I am.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still here. And I wanted to see again. I wanted to hear. I wondered where those things went because I was just surrounded by darkness. And those things slowly started to come to me. But then I started seeing spirits rising up from the earth below me and then going up and beyond. And they looked like a ghost. And they were like older people who had passed away, is what it looked like.
Mm-hmm.
So being 8 years old, I described them as grandparents. That's the age they look like. So they would have been 60s, 70s, you know.
Good evening.
And then after a while, I wondered how come I wasn't going up with them. And so I tried to move. And that's when I realized I had a silver cord that went out of my spirit existence down to my body, down in operating room. And I could see this silver cord. And it was holding me stationary in this blackness. So I just kind of gave up trying. I just sat there and it's like, well, what's going to happen now? I was helpless pretty much. But then I got a little bit scared because I started seeing eyes in the distance, and they looked like they were pretty far away, but I could kind of hear them. And it was almost like a group. They were huddling behind something that was darker than where I was.
Okay, I just got to pause it before it gets too far and I forget my thought. Okay, so he was talking about how looked like, you know, the deceased were kind of going up. Okay, like a whatever tube. I don't remember what he said, but anyways, I've run into some cases where they actually use the term pillars, and what one pillar will have those being reincarnated coming down, and then the other pillar will be the deceased going up. And that kind of gets my mind thinking about Freemasonry too, and the two pillars. So I don't know. I mean, it's just something that I came to my head, and the pillars I haven't really heard described because, you know, I'd really like to hear, oh, maybe they're like Greek pillars, but other people have described them as tubes as well. But in this case, we're only kind of getting one section of it. So it's interesting. Just thought I'd throw that out there because I don't want that thought to lose me and then let it get too far. I apologize for that.
Far away, but I could kind of hear them, and it was almost like a group. They were huddling behind something that was darker than where I was. And they were like huddling and whispering to each other, come over here, look. You know, they were pointing at me. So I became aware of them.
Distraction. Pay attention.
And that was when I realized that I could understand their thoughts. It wasn't just a voice I could hear. I was understanding what they were thinking. It was coming to me.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I realized they could understand what I was thinking. And they detected fear. And that made them stronger, and they came after me. They appeared to be young, like me, like they were kids. But mean, evil, angry, no love in them whatsoever, no compassion whatsoever.
So he's running into some dark entities here. But what's interesting is what he says next.
All they wanted to do was destroy me.
Wow.
Yeah, it was like I still glowed with a little bit of light, with life. I still glowed a little bit. They were blacker than black. And they resented me because I glowed like that. So they were trying to extinguish my light. Mm-hmm. So they could fly. And I was scared. I was telling them to leave me alone, and they'd tease me and imitate my voice and laugh. And they would swoop down and kind of like hit me on a body slam because they could fly. They'd hit me like on the shoulder, and then the tether would keep me there, and I'd just spin. It was real confusing, but it got really old. I mean, they were beating me down pretty bad. And then finally, somewhere, I just called out for help, and I don't know where it came from. I think I was repeating something I heard my mother say a few times, and that was, "Please, God, make them stop." Mm-hmm. And when they stopped, it was because I said that. They were suddenly acting kind of scared, like they were in trouble. Mm-hmm. And it was so odd because they were so aggressive and they were hitting me. And then when I said, "Please, God, make them stop," they looked around like, what's going to happen now? They acted scared. Mm-hmm. And then way off in the distance, I heard a voice, and it started calling out. And it said, "Where are you? I heard you. I'm coming. Where are you?"
Now, just this part, like when I first listened to it, it felt like almost like a troll. "Where are you? Where are you? I hear you." But, remember, he's calling out. He's asking for assistance. Well, what will come? Assistance. He's putting his consent out there, driving his intention in a certain spot and getting a delivery. But it seems like, "Oh, where are you? Where are you?" I don't know. Just to me, it seems a little trolly. I don't know if that's what's going on, but.
And then way off in the distance, I heard a voice, and it started calling out. And it said, "Where are you? I heard you. I'm coming. Where are you?" And it had this voice that said, "Call back." So I'd call back and say, "I'm down here. I'm down here." Because I could tell the voice was coming from up higher. And then the more I called back, it came closer, and then I realized it was a light. So at first it was a light that came to me. Well, as the light got brighter, those black spirits that attacked me, they just took off. They couldn't tolerate the light. Mm. And I believe what came with that it was an angel, and it was the light of God. Mm.
Okay, it was an angel, and it was the light of God. See, what's going on here is the two sides are playing one another. It's the two sides of the same coin, but they're playing the duality role. "Oh, I'm gonna hurt you. I'm gonna get you all worked up and get you scared, and then you're gonna call out for God or Jesus or whoever, and then boom, what comes? An angel, the light of God." Sure, but where are you? Can't find you. Where are you at? Come on. I don't know. It's again, I'm not crapping on this guy's experience. It's the way the system works. It's just one thing of many.
Light. Mm. And I believe what came with that it was an angel, and it was the light of God. Mm. And evil, darkness, blackness, they can't tolerate the light. They have to hide.
That's interesting.
That's what I discovered. Yeah. So once the angel came there and he glowed, I couldn't see him too well at first, and I told him so. So he backed up and he said, "Well, you just have to look at me. Just look at me." He said, "Open your eyes." He was teaching me things, So I can't. He goes, "Use your eyes." And so I was kind of squinting, and then all of a sudden, there he was, just as bright as day.
Dun, dun, dun.
A beautiful man, wonderful, nice, loving, just very caring.
Had a good time.
He had a white robe, and he had a horn, and he had a sword. Something I haven't shared in a video before, I believe, is that I asked him about those things, the horn and the sword. I asked him what they were for. And he told me that someday that God or the Almighty would ask him to use it. And I have a very vague memory of him saying a battle against the blackness, or he might have said the end of times, but that's very vague. But he said something about a battle.
What I find interesting is that I believe you are Danish or from Denmark, if that's the same place. Mm-hmm. And you're kind of describing him as like a Viking god with the horn maybe you drink from or blow from and the sword.
I love Jeff's question here. That's great. It's a hell of a question, but doesn't really go too far. But
And
it's still
that
a good
has,
question.
Any type of, if that's pertinent or not.
That's very interesting. But no, he did refer to God. Not, well, I guess it could have been a Nordic god, but it turns out it wasn't. It was God.
So you see how he kind of second guesses himself there? I mean, who knows? I mean, remember, he grew up in a certain mindset. I guess it could have been a Nordic god, but no, it was God. But, not, whatever it's his experience. I respect it. But I find it interesting that he just briefly questioned it and then kind of reverted back to the programming. PKOSB became a member again. Welcome. Thank you for re-upping.
It was like a long ram's horn.
I found it's interesting the words that you used. You said the words, "Please God, make them stop." And you said you'd heard your mother say that before. So I'm just kind of curious if there's any story along with that. Why would your mother be telling somebody, "Please God, make them stop"?
Another
Do you
great
have any
question.
recollection of that?
No, Mom was a very expressive person. In her family, they would openly say things like that.
Well, yeah,
But I don't remember her ever having an incident where she would have to beg for mercy or something.
Oh.
Nothing like that.
Right. And it may not even be pertinent. It could have been kids playing and just say, "Oh, God, please make them stop." You know what I mean? Something like that. But I just
something like that. Yeah.
I thought I'd ask you. I have one question here because we are live from Miss Donnie, and she wants to know, how could you be sure that this entity was an angel?
The love and the caring and compassion that angel carried was undeniable. It protected me from the evil spirits. So that angel was the exact opposite of the black entities that attacked me. So things get pretty stark. In my experience, things are pretty stark between evil and good. And good far outweighs the evil, and it's a lot more powerful.
Right.
And it's just hard to deny. Although the angel didn't say I'm an angel.
Right.
But that's the only way I can figure, the best way I can describe it.
I find it interesting that on the other side, you not only encountered, loving or good entities, but you encountered, bad entities as well.
Yeah. And I've talked to a few others about this also, and I'm starting to think that if I had not entertained fear, because see, I was so lost. I didn't know where I was or what to do. Because I entertained fear, it almost seemed like an invitation to those dark spirits to come to me.
Mm-hmm.
Now, see, that's a good observation. It likely is the case. Or there's something nestled away, possibly the religious programming that he grew up with, that kind of gave him that little push. But then what is his first thought? Oh, God help me. Angels help me, Jesus help me, whatever. And then boom, 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 they can't find him. Hey, where you at? And then they find him, and then the situation, boom, changes. But it's kind of like the people that call out to Jesus in their time of need and actually get something, something changed in their life, or something drastic occurs. or something very obvious happens to them where they are better. But it's always those high traumatic events, like a near-death experience, or, you know, maybe something traumatic that happens here on Earth. And in turn, the person will call it to Jesus, and, well, what do you know? Jesus will come and deliver. And those things really happen. They do. But it's all part of the system. It's all part of the system to suck you in. And because basically you buy into the Jesus thing, and that Jesus or an angel or God came and saved you in your time of need. Well, what are you? You're a customer for life, baby. The Matrix got you. Boom, boom.
And I have to tell you, I was a very scared little boy as I went under with the ether.
Sure.
I was crying. I was very scared. So maybe that was part of it. I don't know, but I do believe now that if I had some idea of what I was getting into, if I had, in that situation, if I had thought about God and love and happiness, and I want to go to heaven and I want to be loved and protected, I don't think those things would have come to me. Mm-hmm. It's almost like I invited them, is what it feels like. Mm-hmm. But I didn't know what to do. So goodness far outweighs badness, yes. In my life anyway. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, would you like to, should I continue with
sure,
how the angels sent me up to heaven? Or?
Yes, of course.
Okay. So we, of course, the angel had to talk to me about who I was and what I was doing there, those sorts of things. And he checked down into the operating room. I saw him just sort of, I just saw him sort of open it up, and he looked down. And he came back and said, the operation is not going so well. He goes, so I'm going to have to send you up. So then he started communicating up above us, and then there appeared kind of like a yellowish glow, a yellowish light way up high. And he was talking up to this light, but he was using a language I didn't recognize. Of course, the only language I knew was English. But he was talking to something or someone up there, and then they would respond. And then I'd ask him, what are they talking about? And this part's our conversation right at that moment. It's a little bit fuzzy, but I believe what he said was, they're looking for your family up there. And I had no idea that I had family in heaven. Nobody in my family on earth had ever talked about losing someone, ever.
Isn't this interesting? I find this one interesting. It's like, roll out the family. But the family's like not there. It's like delayed. Come on, get the family out here. What the hell? It's like, it's funny. Like you don't really see this. Usually it's like boom, instantaneous. But it's like, oh, like they're looking around up there. Where the hell is, Auntie May?
So, what I heard in church, heaven was where God is and Jesus, and I had no idea that I would have family. So anyway, he said, they're looking for your family. Then eventually he said, okay, it's time, and I'll have to send you. And it was like they gave him instructions. He was needed somewhere else. The angel had to fly on.
Sorry, it's not available at the moment. Check back later.
But he took out his sword and he cut my tether, and he put me in a bubble, and it almost felt like it was plastic, and it was big enough that I had room to move around in it. So if you can imagine, it looked like a plastic bubble, and it even squeaked a little bit. It's weird, but that's what it was. And it was clear, and I could see through it. And he said, I have to leave you now, but you're safe. You don't have to worry anymore. I'm going to send you up, and you can go where all those other spirits went, and you'll be safe. Don't worry. So I trusted him.
I trusted him. Again, this is the giving away of ourselves to beings we know nothing about. We just trust them automatically and hope that they have our best interest at heart. Meanwhile, right now, they haven't even been able to produce the family members yet. And he's like, I didn't even know I had family members. It's a very unique case. It's got a lot of twists and turns, but, I believe the guy. I do. So much matches up, and I feel authenticity just coming off him. And it just seems like, we can't give away ourselves like this. We don't know who these entities are. We don't know what their goals are. We don't know nothing about them. All we know is that what they claim in the astral certainly does not line up with what is experienced here. Yet we're supposed to believe this is all for a learning experience and love. Everything is love. No, it's just, I'm sorry. Just, it doesn't line up.
Kurt's went, you'll be safe. Don't worry. So I trusted him. So eventually I saw myself floating above there. I mean, I could look down and see the lights, city lights in the darkness. And then I looked up and I could see all kinds of stars and galaxies, and they were just beautiful. And then eventually a tunnel appeared, but I call it a whirlpool. It was slowly spinning. It was quite large at the very opening. And it started spinning very slowly, and it was like drawing lights into it. So when I first wrote about this, I thought they were stars. It was taking out of the universe and putting them in the whirlpool. But later I realized those lights were actually people. They were people like me, spirits. And then I looked down to the earth right before I entered the tunnel. I looked down to the earth again, and I noticed there were like 4 or 5 channels of people coming up off the planet, headed up toward the tunnel. And then I was inside one of those channels. It almost looked like a tube, but a lot of people in them.
So he's calling them tubes. Other people have described them as pillars.
And then the tubes just sort of spit us out, I guess is the best way to put it. They just sort of spit us out into the tunnel, and then we were loose. And it's almost like the tunnel is used to sort people out.
Yes.
And I don't know how it does it, but, somebody that was with me before was moved over to another place, saw them again.
I'm sorry, by the way, that the video feed gets choppy during certain segments, but the audio stays pretty good.
But I went around and around inside the tunnel. It was real slow at first, and there were a lot of colors, beautiful colors, like green and blue, red, yellow. And then it got to the end of the tunnel. It was a lot faster, but it wasn't uncomfortable. And then I got spit out inside my bubble still. I got spit out, and then it was just quiet. I couldn't hear any other people. I couldn't see anything. It was just dark. But then up above, I noticed there was a very soft light, and there was like a bank of clouds up there. Very soft, pleasant light coming out of it.
Okay, I hate to interrupt them in this part, but it's kind of, oops, to my volume levels. Test. Oh shit, my volume levels went really bad. Okay, I apologize for that. Okay, anyways, all right, so in a lot of distressing NDEs or hell-like NDEs, a lot of times the person is in something like a void, but they see like a pinprick of light or a light far in the distance. In this case, with him, he has a light in the distance with some clouds around it, but he's in a void state, which is interesting. It's like almost luring him, like, hey, come with me.
There. Very soft, pleasant light coming out of it. And my bubble floated up to it and stopped. And I sat there for just a brief moment. And then 2 hands shot down through the cloud, grabbed me by the shoulders, lifted me up, and set me down. there I was in front of a man, and I had no idea who he was. I told my father about this guy years later. He seemed to think it was his cousin, Eddie, who had died in the Korean War. So he must have died around, I don't know, 52, 53. Well, my near death took place in 63. So he must have been dead about 10 years. But I describe the man as being really happy-go-lucky and real nice, you know. And my dad seemed to think it was his cousin Eddie. But I didn't know who the guy was, and he didn't know me. So he said, I have some relatives up here a short distance. Why don't you come with me, and I'll introduce you.
Come with me. Trust me. Come with me. Give me your intention, and you'll come with me. Don't make a sovereign decision. Come with Uncle Eddie.
I have some relatives up here a short distance. Why don't you come with me, and I'll introduce you. So I went up there, and they were trying to figure out who I was. We just didn't know each other. They finally, and they were older people. Well, they looked older to me anyway. But they just kept asking questions. And finally there was an older lady that said, well, who's your father? And I said, my dad's name is Lyle. And then she recognized his name, and she goes, well, he's my grandson.
Wow.
So that's how we made the connection. So apparently they didn't really know I was coming, which is odd, because it seems like every other near death I've heard about, people, when they were met up in heaven with people, they already knew who they were.
Yeah.
He's right. Almost all the cases are like that. It's like they know, and if they didn't know them from this lifetime, if they had passed away, they know them somehow, like that they're in their soul group. Okay, they're in that connective group that continually reincarnates together. Like they may have not reincarnated with them this most recent lifetime, but they have previously, or maybe the one before, or whatever the case is. But they know these people. There's no doubt. So to me, this seems like almost like a Matrix emergency. Like, oh, okay, we got to connect the dots immediately and make it look legit. But it does connect, because as you saw with Ken, he's verifying information back here with his family. So it's really, really interesting. But you got to keep in mind, he's 8 years old too. You know, so he has a unique situation in that it's more limited life experience while here. So he doesn't have much basis to go off of in this incarnation. But he does go back and verify with his family and gets a positive identification about who the family thinks it likely is. So always keep in mind, especially with Ken's case, that we're dealing with an 8-year-old child when this happens. People, when they were met up in heaven with people, they already knew who they were.
Yeah.
But in my case, they didn't really know who I was. So I don't understand how that happened, but it did. So we had to talk back and forth for a while. And the concept of my living grandparents on Earth having parents had never, ever struck me. But who I was talking to were my great-grandparents. Actually, I got an old picture of one of my sets of great-grandparents over here in the wall. So they introduced themselves and were explaining to me that, well, they said they knew that my grandparents, Pete and Bertha. So one woman said, well, I'm Bertha's mother, and Pete, the other woman said, I'm Pete's mother. I finally figured out they were, who they were. So then once we made all those connections, then, oh boy, conversation just took off. I was just surrounded by spirits, people that were related through my family, and they knew my dad, and they wanted to talk and tell me things. Some of them were some of my dad's buddies. I think they might have been killed in the war, World War II. And then I met a couple of my dad's school teachers, very nice ladies. And I even think I think I've seen my dad's yearbook from high school. I think I can pick out the teacher that I met, at least one of them. Yeah. And so, yeah, they talked about my dad in school, and he was a good kid, apparently. Of course, up there, they don't say anything bad about anybody. You know, there's no judgment, not up there. So once I got familiar with my relatives and everything, I was pretty happy. And I suppose I should mention this chair I'm sitting in, because it is a little bit gaudy. But when I was introduced to my great-grandfather Lath, he was sitting in a chair like this. So I only started talking publicly about my near-death experience around 2015. And I remember telling some people about my great-grandfather sitting in a high-back chair. And what you know, suddenly I noticed a high-back chair, this one for sale, in a buy-sell trade place. I think it was in Facebook. So I bid on it and got it. And it's just because I saw chairs like this up in heaven. And it's just kind of special to me. So.
Okay, so we got the story of the chair. Yeah, so you know what it kind of gives the vibe off of is like maybe God's throne. Just saying. I'm not saying that's what the intention was, but I get the throne feeling going on with that. And so what we're going to do right now is just take a quick 5-minute break, and we'll be right back to continue the story. We still got a ways to go. There's still a lot more to come in this experience. It's jam-packed, so I hope you've been enjoying it so far, and I look forward to seeing you all in about 5 minutes. Hang in there with me. See you shortly. Thank you. Alrighty. Sorry about the delay there. Little extended break. All right. So let's get back into it. Thank you for your patience. Okie doke.
That's why I bought it.
Yeah, it's a beautiful
I'm not trying
chair.
to prove anything to anybody.
It's a beautiful chair.
Yeah, it used to sit in a Catholic church, I think.
Of course it did. God's throne.
For some reason, they decided to get rid of it. So, yeah, and my great-grandfather, when I was introduced to him, he even let me sit in his chair up there. But I didn't understand the whole idea they have chairs. I don't know. I couldn't tell you. We didn't talk about it. Well, then, so after I was finally introduced to all my relatives and all the conversations kind of died down, then one of my great-grandmothers told me that somebody special was coming to greet me, to visit with me. And it was somebody outside the family, and that this person was really special. And so, you know, I was open to it. So this woman shows up, and the first thing I noticed about her is my great-grandparents appeared to be dressed in clothes that they would have worn back in their day, you know, in the early 1900s. But this woman that showed up to greet me, she wore like it was almost like a robe, and the cloth was real rough, a real loose weave. But the thing about her that really stood out at first, her hair was chopped real uneven. I mean, she had hair like sticking out in bunches here and there, just real uneven, messy looking. And I must have said something to her about it. And my great-grandmother and this other woman started explaining to me that when she lived on Earth, they didn't have scissors, that she cut her hair with a knife. And that's why it looked all chopped, which is really an odd thing. But maybe back in biblical days, for example, maybe they didn't have scissors.
Or whatever time of period it was. Doesn't have to be biblical, right? I mean, you see how it kind of automatically goes to biblical times as if that's the only time. Just saying.
Maybe they did use a knife, or maybe
that's the programming. That's the belief system, you know? So that's kind of what's ingrained in him, you know? No, not crapping on him. You know, I respect him and appreciate him sharing, but you see where the programming comes in and how it kind of encompasses his life here, because everything was kind of confirmed for him at his near-death experience at the age of 8.
For example, maybe they didn't have scissors. Maybe they did use a knife, or maybe an axe. Who knows?
Yeah.
An axe.
But I didn't. None of that mattered to me, because, you know, this woman, oh my goodness, she had so much love in her. It was just a concentration of love that couldn't be denied. And I was comfortable with her immediately, like she was a mother. So she asked me if I'd like to go with her, because she wanted to show me some things about my family. So I said yes. So she took me a long distance away from my family. And when she had me alone, she started to like glow, and she was turned into like a light. And then I started to transform. And I was like a toddler at one point, and she was leading me by the hand. And then at another point, she was holding me, cradling me like an infant. And, oh, the love she had was just tremendous. And she takes me a long distance away, and she goes, okay, I have something to show you here. And she sort of waved her hand, and another tunnel opened up, and it was almost like a cave. And I could see back into it very deep. And like what was represented in the cave were steps. And at each step, she explained, is a generation of your family. She said, your family has a very long history. And see here, this is how it looks. So I saw a few generations up close to the entrance to the cave. And then going back, each step progressively was I think a generation that goes even back further in history. So at the very far end, I saw a very tall but very hunchbacked man with a cane, a walking stick, actually, a very tall one. And he was just standing there all by himself. But the ones that were closer to me, they often were like couples, like married couples, and they were sitting in chairs. And so one woman started waving to me and got my attention. So I waved back. I think now that I've done some family history research, genealogy, I think that was my double great grandmother. And they didn't come over from Denmark to America like my grandparents did, or great grandparents. They stayed behind. So it's kind of special, to be able to meet them that way. It's better than finding them on the internet,
Yeah.
So let me just check ancestry.com for, I mean, honestly, that's cool. I mean, he gets to meet her. It's just, it's like, but who is it? Is it really great grandma? That's the question. I don't think it is. I don't. Shout out to 432 Hertz for renewing your membership. Thank you so much.
I have some reference that way, like they're real. So then this woman that brought me here to all this, if you don't mind, from now on, I'll just call her mother because that's who she was to me.
Okay.
And I trusted her completely. So mother said, she explained all these different generations and what was going on with it. But then she pointed out that at the very far end of the tunnel, there was a very bright light. And she asked me to look way back there. Do you see that light? Yes, I do. It was like yellowish and very bright. And she goes, well, that light is coming to meet you. It's coming to see you. And just stand here and they will come. And it did. And the light just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger until it was about the size of a man. And then it stopped in front of me and then it turned into a man. And I asked mother, well, who is this? And I think she was kind of introducing me to him and they were talking about me. So I asked her, who is this? And she said, well, on earth, he went by many names, but she said, they might have told you that his name is Jesus. And she asked me, do you recognize that name? And I did, of course. I recognized Jesus. Very nice fellow. But what? In church, it was always expressed, or the idea was stressed, that Jesus was a God and that he was all powerful. And we would be lucky if we ever got to meet him. We should be on our knees worshiping him. We should be begging him for mercy and to forgive our sins and all these things. He was just so powerful. We just couldn't even imagine that we would ever get to encounter him. Well, he wasn't like that at all. He was like a son talks to his mother. And they would discuss me and what should we do next? Well, I think we should do that. Okay, well, we'll do that next. That's the way they were with each other. He wasn't this powerful God that would strike me down if I didn't worship him immediately. It wasn't like that.
Yeah.
So he just seemed pretty normal. But he seemed young. Like he would have been maybe in his late 20s, early 30s. The way he looked.
And did he have that?
Very nice guy.
Did he have that traditional Jesus kind of look, long hair, beard, how he is typically portrayed?
He looked, the pictures I've seen, they make him look a little more plump. And he wasn't a big man. He was kind of slender and not really very, well, I'd say, just guessing. Of course, I was 8 years old when I saw him, so I would guess that he was under 6 foot. And he didn't look to me, he didn't look beefy and muscular.
He's only 6 feet this time, guys. I'm sorry. I know we were hoping for at least a 15-footer or higher, or 200-footer. We got screwed today. I'm sorry, guys.
I'd say, just guessing. Of course, I was 8 years old when I saw him, so I would guess that he was under 6 foot.
I think he meant 600 feet, but we'll just leave it at that. Just playing.
And he didn't look beefy and muscular. Mm-hmm. You know, he looked just like a regular guy in the street, kind of slender. And he didn't demand to be acknowledged and, you know, that kind of stuff.
He doesn't need to be acknowledged because you're already giving him your attention. You're already sending your intention by acknowledging him and being with him and communicating with him or it. So that's all it needs. It needs to win you over. That's the number one objective. And it runs all of these, in my opinion, algorithms to get you to agree with it. That's all. That's its number one objective, is to suck us in and to get us linked within it and send our intention in the wrong place. Then what does it do? It takes our sovereignty away.
Just, I don't know. He's just a typical nice guy is the way he acted to me.
He didn't even invite me over for a cup of coffee.
So Mother, after we got introduced, Mother said that he wants to take you. And then he said, I need to take you. And you need to experience something with me. I'm really struggling for words at this point because I know Jesus said something to me, but I don't know exactly how he said it. But all I know was I was alone with him and Mother told me to go with him. Mm-hmm. So I did, and I was perfectly comfortable. He was a very nice fellow and I trusted him. And so he took me away from her and he just sort of told me to stand still. And it was kind of like, watch this.
Pay attention.
And then all of a sudden he turned into a light again and he glowed and that light entered me. And then I glowed and I felt a tremendous sense of comfort and love and joy and acceptance.
Hashtag me too. Jesus shouldn't be entering him.
It was wonderful. And he expanded and his light got really big. And then I expanded with him. So it was like we were mingled together there for a moment. And then I heard a voice and at this point, he was just a light. There was no longer a form of a man. It was just like,
exactly.
And heard a voice and the voice said, I am the Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end of all things. It took me years later to recall that. I heard it actually in church when I was still a boy. I heard it being read from the Bible. And as soon as I heard it, I just sat up because it sparked a memory in me. I remembered hearing that when I was up in heaven.
Did you feel at the time that Jesus was God?
Love
or
the
did
question,
you feel like
Jeff.
Jesus more was, like this powerful, loving being, but not the source creator?
Love it. Great question.
That's a good question.
It's a hell of a
Once
question.
I mingled with the light and we were together, it was like Jesus was there, but we both joined together. I believe the light that he used, the light that surrounded us together, actually was God's light.
Interesting.
Because after that happened, then Jesus his presence wasn't felt anymore. And then I knew I was talking to how can I put it? I knew that I was talking to God. I don't know how else to explain it. You just know things in those situations up in heaven. Nobody had to tell me that it was God. I just knew it.
Right.
The best I can give you, the best description is in my in my Christian background. The way I understood it anyway as a child was that if you know Jesus, Jesus can bring you to God. God is the gateway for humanity, is the way they explained it. And so if you trust Jesus and have him in your heart and you believe in Jesus, then Jesus can open the door for you to be in God's realm. Well, that's pretty much what it felt like.
See how this is confirmation bias? I mean, the whole thing has been confirmation bias because we know, hands down, from all the top near-death experiencer researchers, they say time and time again that everything is belief-based driven. Again, you see Jesus, you see Buddha, you see Muhammad, you see Hulk Hogan, whoever the heck it is, it's all based on your belief system. And then the experience is customized for you when you go into the afterlife. Or if you have something like a near-death experience, or sometimes even an out-of-body experience, or a breakthrough trip. Okay? So all these things present themselves time and time and time again. And it shows that there is a system in place that customizes itself to your belief system. If that doesn't scream red flags, I don't know what does. Now, of course, you could say, oh, well, I believe in this, I believe in that, I believe in that. Well, guess what? That's the situation that you're going to walk into if you decide to, interact with it. So just be careful. These things are not as they seem. We know nothing about them. And they basically, like we were talking about earlier, shape-shifting. I mean, we heard it in this near-death experience where basically Jesus shape-shifted into a ball of light. So it's changing form before his eyes. So who's to say, again, that, if you think you're dealing with an angel, who knows if you're dealing with a demon? Or if you think you're dealing with God, who knows that you're dealing with the devil or Satan or whatever you want to call it, some demonic entity, whatever you want to call it, okay? The point is we know nothing about this stuff. We are clouded under the veil of forgetfulness, lifetime after lifetime, and we just kind of submit and don't think about it. And just, oh my God, you must be divine. Oh my God, you must be loving. You must be amazing. And just go along for the ride. There's nothing sovereign about that situation. There's nothing about you being able to call the shots on your own for you in that type of situation. And once you kind of get wrapped in it, it's very difficult to get out. We've seen it so many times with the love bomb and near-death experience. Basically, people are drugged. Let's just call it what it is. It's a euphoria drug bomb, okay? Euphoria, love, drug bomb, okay? And it happens time and time and time again. And people equate love with God, love with Jesus, love with whoever, as if we know it, as if we are, as if we've known it the whole time. But just remember, you just left your body. And you're expected to just trust these things. Go along with the ride. What I'm saying is stand up for yourself. Stand up for you. Do what's right for you. Take your time. You don't need to make a decision right away. At a minimum, personally, I think hanging around isn't the best thing to do at all. But do what you need to do for you. Make a sovereign decision. Because remember, these things at the time of death, they come racing on in, trying to get us to make decisions and go with them. Not some, but many people experience death visions and visitations. And what happens there are these entities come and they say that they're your family, your deceased loved ones or deceased pets or whatever the case may be, and they say, oh, well, you're not going to last much longer. Your time's coming near. So just so you know, you're going to be coming down the tunnel into the light with us, to heaven, or whatever it is, to the light. You pick it. And then what they're doing is trying to garner our consent, trying to get our intention to go along with it. And then what are we doing? Again, we're blindly trusting things that we know nothing about, but they're cloaked under the guise of our family members. In some cases, they may actually be our family members, but remember, they're still within the confines of the Matrix. So if they're within the confines of the Matrix, that means they're still trapped here. So real or not, it's a lose-lose for our sovereign decision-making. There's nothing that could possibly be good about that situation with just blindly trusting these entities. It's not good. So let's just move on.
Only it's a lot more vague than the way it was described in the Bible. It was just like Jesus brought me to God.
Good old Jesus.
In a way, Jesus was there, but he wasn't. It's hard to explain.
Yeah, he was there, but he wasn't.
But I know that I had a conversation alone with God. He knew me very well.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I bet he did.
And it was a different voice I heard. And it was deep and rumbling. It's like if you were to be on a mountaintop and hear that deep voice, you'd be certain it would echo in the mountain range 50 miles away. You would hear it echo back. That's how penetrating it was. It just was so deep. And I still identified with the notion or the idea that I was an 8-year-old boy. So I was a little bit intimidated. I didn't always really feel real sure what I should do. And yet I was constantly reassured that I was loved, that I was safe, that everything was fine, that I had done no wrong, that I was forgiven, whatever. No punishment or nothing like that whatsoever. It was always acceptance and we love you because you are, Mm-hmm. But I'm starting to remember some of the things God told me. And one thing he said was, I believe he told me, he said, I'm going to send you back to earth. But he said, when you're on earth, never forget that I'm your father. Never forget that I'm your father. There will be those on earth who will try to trick you or to get you to say that you do not believe in me. And he told me to never do that.
Never forget your father. You got this? I'm the big kahuna here, not you. You listen to me. Don't you dare go making sovereign decisions for yourself. I mean, seriously. We're just blindly giving ourselves away to these entities we know nothing about. And just hope that, yes, they're love and light, that they're God, they're Jesus, they're this, they're that. Come on. We know nothing about these damn things except their feelings. Because you know why? We've been here a long time. We've been at this bullshit lifetime after lifetime and having our memories wiped over and over and over again.
Always remember that I am your...
And we just blindly trust them. We got to stop.
There will be those on earth who will try to trick you or to get you to say that you do not believe in me. And he told me to never do that. Always remember that I am your God. And he also told me a little bit about Jesus. I think he asked me if I remembered or if I could recall what Jesus did for him. And I think I said he died on the cross. I did know that much. And he told me that because Jesus gave his life in my name, he said that Jesus received tremendous rewards from me here in heaven. So he told me that anyone that gives their life like Jesus did is rewarded just as much. And he even warned me that you may be attacked on earth, and there will be those who attack you because of your faith in me. And he goes, if you give your life in my name, he said, your rewards will be tremendous. Now, isn't that a strange thing for an 8-year-old boy to recall?
Yeah, that is interesting.
But what I got, the very strong notion I got out of the whole thing was God basically loved me just as much as he said he loves Jesus. So he told me, you can do as Jesus did and receive tremendous rewards, or you can live your life and not do those things. You may not have to give up your life in my name. You will still be loved. There was no requirement from him, that I should be on a death mission. I should go find people who want to kill me for some reason. It's not like that. So I don't know, maybe I'm talking in circles here, but I'm trying to keep it straight for you.
All right. Praise the Lord.
So, my interaction with God and Jesus ended, and Jesus brought me back to Mother. And that was when I had my life review. And I was shown all kinds of incidents and things that had happened to me in my 8 years. So I saw my birth. And I do remember seeing something about my birth that
abstract.
Something about it just didn't seem right. And I think it was because I saw the doctor spank me so much. And that came back to me years later when my mother talked about it when she's on her deathbed. So I was shown times when I was with family, and there was a lot of those times. And at the time when I was little, I had aunts and uncles that were still in grade school. So my mother came from a big family, like 11 kids, and she was one of the oldest. So that's why I'm so close to some of my aunts and uncles in age. I was very much loved, very well taken care of. And then Jesus and Mother both took me to another barrier of sorts and told me to go through there and experience it. And it did feel an awful lot like the whole time they were there with me, they were taking care of me, almost like it was a babysitter-child relationship. It was like, you're with us, you're under our care, and they were always making sure I was okay. But they took me to another barrier and they told me to go through it. And I just floated, and it was just full of knowledge. It was like the knowledge of the universe. And I was there alone. And I felt like I was flying, and I was like orbiting a huge planet very slowly. And as I was orbiting this huge planet and flying, information was coming to me. And during all this is the first indication I think I had that I had lived a previous life. Because I would see some bit of knowledge and I would understand it. And then I would say to myself, well, of course, this makes perfect sense. And I knew all this before, but why did I forget it?
Why did I forget it? That's a good question. That's what we ask on this channel all the time. Why did we forget it? I knew it, but then I got, thrown into this meat suit with a memory wipe, lifetime after lifetime. Why don't I remember it? It's all part of the deception. And that's what we're trying to point out over and over and over. And I know if some of you are new, just hang in there. I promise you, if you just stick with the channel, check out Wayne Bush, trickedbythelight.com, and Dan at Overwatch channel and overwatchproject.com. I promise you will get your answers. It might take a little while, but just hang in there. This is so easily provable to all of us. Just please, please hang in there.
And I think that's an indication that I had lived a previous life. I knew it because I had been through it before.
Yep.
But yeah, apparently when near-death people, we sometimes get to experience all this universal knowledge. When we come back, we forget it. We can't really recall all of it. I can recall certain things. I do recall seeing a very specific thing about the relationship between plants and humans, and how plants sink their roots into the soil, and how that's all fine and good, and life and God's power helps it grow, but it's enhanced if humanity helps it. So it's like we're all intermingled with it. And it's the way humanity helps things grow that makes all the difference.
So God's power helps, but humanity kind of aids it. Now, what does that seem like? Now, just throwing this out there, when I was listening to this before, I was thinking, this sounds kind of loosey, right? But it's true. I mean, like, you know, if you have a plant in your home, you have flowers, you want to care for it, you want to feed it water or, you know, organic fertilizer. You want to take care of it, give it proper sun. And what does it do? It grows, it lives longer as a result of that. Now, you know, personally, I think there's no doubt that consciousness exists inside of plants, in trees, grass, whatever. All right. So the system has a reason for us to make it grow, for us to help it. Because what? That links into the loosh factor, right? Links into the energy extraction process. The longer that consciousness is stuck inside the plant, the longer it is a feeding tool for the loosh system. And we are in turn aiding in that to some extent. Just saying, that's just my theory. It's just an opinion. Make of it what you will.
Things grow, that makes all the difference. So I remember seeing something about that. I remember like mathematical equations flying past me, like MC equals something squared, whatever. And I saw the diagram, like somebody was figuring out the solution to the problem, and it was like being written in front of me, and then it would disappear because it was complete. And then another mathematical problem would show up. Very strange. And then I saw also vibrations. And this is something that came back to me recently. I'd say within the last 2 or 3 years, because I've met other near-death people, like at a conference. And I remember them talking about vibrations in heaven. It took me a while to remember it, but it has come back, and I do remember. Heaven is that area of knowledge up in heaven is filled with vibrations. And I would just stop for a little while and just listen, and then I would hear them through heaven. Sometimes they're a long distance away, sometimes they were really close, but the vibrations almost sounded like a very large structure groaning and growing, if you can imagine. And it would be like, when it was deep, it was just like, brrr.
Okay, I think this point is interesting because I just get the feeling that we're dealing with a feeding. I'm going to rewind it just a little bit because I know I had another thought and I should have said it when it came out. I apologize.
Through heaven, sometimes they're a long distance away, sometimes they're, and I would just stop for a little while and just listen, and then I would hear them through heaven. Sometimes they're a long distance away, sometimes they're really close.
Oh yeah, it had to do with the memories. I apologize. I'll fast forward. It had to do with that he has kind of recalled certain memories as he's grown older. Now, when I kind of first started researching this topic, I wasn't too comfortable with that. But as I became a little more open to certain things that I wasn't open to in the past, I do realize that, we're talking about a guy who has a book out, talking about other people who have books and DVDs and are on speaking circuits and all this stuff. And in my opinion, we're dealing with Matrix reinforcement officers, as Kisme so graciously has termed it. And that's what I think we're dealing with. We're dealing with these people who have the experience. It doesn't necessarily make them NPCs. Let's get that right out of the way before we go down that road. It doesn't necessarily make them NPCs. It just makes them believing in the system, just like we all did. Remember, we're all here. We've all bought into this system. That's the only reason we're here. Okay, because we bought into attachments and the narrative and the God and the angels and the demons and whoever and actually and hierarchies, and we actually gave them more power than they ever deserved, and our sovereignty was stolen away from us by our own doing. Okay, lifetime after lifetime. Now, perhaps yes, we came in here initially consenting to this, but the point is these are the system's top agents, in my opinion, to further the narrative and get things out there so that suffering and to perpetuate that Earth is a school narrative and all this stuff. You're here to learn and grow and blah, blah, blah. It's to continue to perpetuate that and make sure that we don't make sovereign decisions. And so what happens? He gets on a bunch of podcasts. I don't fault him. Ken, if you're ever listening to this, my friend, I don't have anything against you whatsoever. My heart is always open to every single experiencer that I do commentary on. And you're always more than welcome to come on the show. But we see it too much. And the biggest problem I have, Ken, is that we're not questioning these things. Okay. We're not openly questioning what's going on and just blindly trusting these entities. I know I've said it many times, but please, if you have someone like Ken who has this at 8 years old, they're going to be a good resource for the system until they die. So it's something you got to consider.
Through heaven, sometimes they're a long distance away, sometimes they're really close, but the vibrations almost sounded like a very large structure groaning and growing, if you can imagine. And it would be like, when it was deep, it was just like, brrr, and it would just rumble. Then other times there were really high notes, and it was almost like chirping, like birds were singing, very high notes. But I could see the vibrations that go up a wall, like the ripples. You could see that. And I kind of remember there were some colors involved when all that happened. So, when I hear like monks who meditate and they kind of go, oh, when they meditate, when I hear a group of them do that, boy, that sounds really close. It sounds really close to what I heard.
Okay. All right. So we are approaching the 2 hour and 5 minute mark. So I'm going to have to take a 5-minute break and stretch here. And we will see each other in, like I said, in about 5 minutes, maybe a little less. So hang in there. We got still a little bit ways to go. And there's some interesting things that he shares. So just hang in there a little bit. I'll see you in a moment. And thank you for your patience. See you shortly. frozen again. Hold on. What the heck? Hopefully this fixes it. Come on, what the heck? What the hell? Bear with me 1 minute. There we go. I think we're good now. I think. Alright, yep, we're good. Alright, there we go. Get down, baby. Alright, welcome back to Forever Conscious Research Channel. Let's get rolling. We're on the final segment here. Shouldn't be much longer. I think we got about 20-25 minutes left without commentary, and then we'll be wrapping this thing up. And if anyone wants to join in the Discord server after the channel, feel free. And I also want to thank the members out there. Thank you so much for your continued support of the channel. All right, let's get rolling.
And I'm starting to believe that, like some people believe in gongs and everything, the really deep gongs. Mm-hmm. Those gongs do something to me. When I hear them, it's like they're on the right track.
Mm-hmm.
They absolutely do something. I can't tell you how many times I've had heightened meditations with gongs, and it's incredible. And the bells, all that stuff, like you could self-hypnotize yourself, drum beats, all that stuff absolutely works. It's incredible what you can do with that. And even if you're not doing it yourself, even just listening to it, again, I always suggest listening with headphones. Headphones is the key, because you really, really get the full stereo sound, and it can't be beat. And you can get to heightened states of consciousness just with simple meditation. You can easily go out of your body, or I've found myself in void-like states of just me, nothingness, but just me, many, many times. And they are some of the most transformative experiences I've ever had. And they can be achieved fairly easily with a decent meditation practice. Even if you just start out with like 15-20 minutes a day and work from that, you really can do amazing things with meditation. You're also going to be confronted with things, but that's a good lesson, right? Meditation's a great lesson, because you can be confronted with your thoughts. You can be confronted with your intention and how to handle it. It's a way for us to really work on ourselves while we're here in preparation for when we leave. So it's not just out-of-body experiences, astral projection. It's, meditation, mindfulness practice, getting out into nature, even things like stargazing, mirror gazing even. Mirror gazing is a little freaky, not gonna lie. It's freaky. But all the other things I mentioned are really, really helpful for us clamping down on our sovereignty and just being used to just being us. Not allowing something exterior to ourselves to intrude or invade our thoughts or our intention, so that when we do cross over the time of natural death, that we are okay, that we can handle ourselves better. Just start off with a slow daily practice, and then you'll find yourself wanting to do more and more.
They really are.
Mm-hmm. How did you get back into your body? After Mother took me and showed me other places in heaven.
and basically gave me a tour of heaven. And then Mother eventually took me back to my relatives where I first entered. And then there was some discussion over whether or not I should go back to Earth. Mother asked me if I wanted to go back to Earth, and I couldn't make up my mind because I really liked it up there. I mean, to be a little kid, I was kind of used to being scolded all the time, but nobody up there would do that. I could say whatever I wanted, and nobody would tell me to be quiet. You know, I was always listened to, and it was always appreciated. It was nice. So, Mother came to me and said, we have to decide whether or not you go back to Earth. And I couldn't make up my mind. And she said, well, if you stay up here, then she showed me another chair. They asked me, do you like your grandfather's chair? And I said, yeah, it's a great chair, but I didn't understand the importance of it. Mother showed me another chair, and it was short. The back was short, and it looked more modern. And then she even had me sit in it for a while. And so I asked her, well, what's the importance of my having my own chair? And she said, well, it's like a place of honor. If you stay with us, that chair will be yours forever, and you'll be honored in that chair forever. I was like, wow. But the honor part of it, I didn't understand. I didn't get it. So I got up and I went back to my grandparents, my great-grandparents, and kept talking with them. They were more fun. Mother came to me again and said, so are you going to stay here, or do you want to go back down? So I got something was said about my mother on Earth. And she said, if you stay up here, your mother on Earth is going to be very sad. And she even told me that she's praying and she wants you back.
That's what the guilt trip wagon. Woo, woo, woo. Roll out the guilt trip. Here it comes.
I said, oh, that I could relate to. And then I said,
I bet.
Oh, well, will you let me go down there and tell her it's really nice up here and I'm okay? And Mother said, no, either you stay up here with us or you go down. So I said, okay, I guess I better go back. I don't want my mother to be sad. So the same guy that pulled me up out of the cloud put me back down in it. So that would have been my dad's cousin, Eddie. He said goodbye. All my relatives said goodbye. One great-grandmother protested. She didn't want me to leave. Bless her heart. But they took me to the cloud, and Eddie pushed me back down. And then
I'm just going to say this. That I don't think I've ever heard that. No, I don't think I've ever heard that. That someone is protesting that they don't go back down. Now, perhaps, could be playing both sides there. But I don't think I've ever heard that. Have any of you heard that? Where a fan, or they're, the way I kind of see it is they can gauge a person's, they can gauge where a person is at. So if they can gauge where a person is at, then they know that basically they're going to go back down. And so they could maybe, throw out like the sympathy card to make it a little more real. But I don't think I've personally run across that ever. Where there's because normally they're trying to get him back and that is it. I don't see why they would risk that. Why would they throw that in there? I'm really curious. Has anyone heard that? I'm going to take a poll. All right, let's continue.
But they took me to the cloud, and Eddie pushed me back down, and then I was in another tunnel. Only going back, it wasn't quite so pleasant. It was a lot more rough, and I felt confined and squeezed. And then what's crazy is at one point, I was kind of spit out of the tunnel, and I looked back up at it, and it was gold or golden colored. And it almost had the shape of a uterus, which is really strange.
Interesting.
But it almost had the shape of a uterus, yeah. Then I floated back down to Earth. My next memory is I'm floating above my body, and my body is in the hospital room where it all started. And I entered my body from the back of my head, feet first. And I slipped back into my body. And the moment I was back, I was like, why did I come back? Oh, the sickness was waiting for me.
Exactly. I mean, that was a video I did long ago. What's like the biggest comparisons with pre-birth memories and near-death experiences? I didn't want to come back. Or I didn't want to come. Either one of the two. Okay? I'm telling you, I don't know what the number is. I would love for Dr. Raymond Moody to do a poll on this, because he's got all the data. I mean, or most of the data. I would love to see his interpretation of this. And if that, what is the percentage of people that say they don't want to come back? I'm telling you, it's got to be over 90%, maybe 95%. It's huge, massive. Because most people that you listen to in NDEs, they say flat out they didn't want to come back. But there have been a few that I've heard that they said they did want to come back for whatever reason. So, and usually it's related to like a family member that's dying, or a newborn child, or something. Even though the ones that didn't want to come back usually fall for the same kind of narrative. So it's interesting. All right, let's continue.
And I felt terrible. I was cursing myself. Well, not cursing, but I was like sorry that I had made the decision. And then, I don't know, I must have just passed out. And then after several minutes, I could tell people, it was like mumbling around me. And then I finally opened my eyes, and my parents were there, my grandparents. One grandmother was holding my hand and rubbing it real gently, and it was Grandma Bertha. And as soon as I could talk, I said, Grandma, I was in heaven. I met your mother. Oh. She's really nice. Uh-huh. And my Grandma Bertha, she was
Big Bertha.
A little bit weak in that area, got spooked easily. And she had this voice. She kind of like, oh, she wasn't sure about it. She didn't know what to think. But then all of a sudden, all the people in the room, they're all talking real fast. Oh, you must have just had a dream. You were really sick. Wow, you had quite a dream, didn't you? Well, you're back now. You're with us. You're okay. And I felt a little bit perturbed with them. It was like, no, I'm telling you, I went up to heaven. I know it's real. And nobody believed me.
Did you ever find out later after your surgery if you had any complications during surgery, or if you'd actually died during surgery or anything?
All I know is what my mother told me. Actually, my doctor's still alive, believe it or not. He's still alive. But he came back to the room and told her that I may not make it. That I was in pretty bad shape, because they discovered my appendix had burst. Yeah. And all that stuff, the pus and stuff, had been released. But fortunately, the surgeon found that it all kind of stayed in a knot, kind of a tight knot. It wasn't liquid, mostly. It was in a knot. So he was able to lift it out. And then they saved me with penicillin, a lot of shots. And I had a tube in my gut. My gut stayed open for about 2 more weeks with the tube, and it was draining out stuff. Constant penicillin shots. They'd knock me out every night, wake me up every morning, pin pricks to test my blood, constant, looking for infection. It was kind of touch and go. Yeah. But yeah, that's all I know is the doctor told my mother that I may not make it.
Right.
But nothing was said about they thought they lost me.
Yeah. Well, I want to let everybody know that, unfortunately, I have a time limit, but Ken here has a book, and you can find out a lot more of this story in his book. And where can we get your book at, by the way?
It's michealbooks.com. It's spelled MISEAL books.com.
Interesting. So it's not on Amazon or Google Books or anything like that.
No, it's a small publisher. And the fellow I work with, he's a near-death experiencer too.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, for now, it's just available in paperback. Maybe eventually we'll make it available through Amazon, but we'll have to see. I haven't really talked to my publisher about it.
Do you interact with the public at all? Like, do you have a Facebook page, or, are people able to email you and talk to you about your story, or are you more of a private person?
When it comes to Facebook, I have a lot of family in my Facebook, my personal Facebook, and I kind of tend to keep it to people that I know. But in Twitter, I can be contacted there, and I will answer if you have a direct question. So,
what is your Twitter account?
It's at Ken_Leth, Leth. Ken_Leth, Leth at twitter.com.
Okay, great.
Yeah, it's at Ken_Leth. That's me.
Do you have any other projects that you're working on right now that you want people to know about?
No, I really don't. I'm 65. I'm retired. I live way out in the country. I'm isolated. I'm just taking life one day at a time, trying to stay away from COVID. I'm not out looking for dollars. I'm not begging for dollars and projects and stuff like that.
Okay, so I just want to let you know. I agree with Ken that, I don't see that. He's been on a few shows and shared his story, shared his experiences, but he's not the type of person that you're finding out there who is, again, begging for dollars or it says a lot that his book isn't even available on Amazon. At least when this interview is conducted. Amazon's one of the biggest places to sell your book, and he chose not to do it, or at least his publishing company did. Okay. I will say, if you head over to his Twitter, you're going to find, he buys into the system, just like many of the other experiencers do. All right. And it's going to be more left leaning. All right. So, just want to let you know, again, my heart goes out to anyone who has been dragged along in this system like we all have. And I don't judge anyone because of their views. I may laugh a little bit here and there or stuff like that, but I don't judge anyone because I was once brainwashed too. And I was brainwashed enough that I reincarnated here. And I was brainwashed enough where I was basically buying into the system for years. Few decades. So, I don't judge people like that. I don't immediately assume, they're NPCs or this or that. No, I don't. I have a heart. I have compassion and empathy for these people. And, we may joke around and laugh and all that stuff. And, that's a way to kind of ease the seriousness of the topic of the Matrix Reincarnation Soul Trap. But again, I am very connected with every case that we talk about, every experiencer case, because it's difficult. It's difficult. I could rant and say a lot of things, and be way worse in all these cases, but I don't, because there's no need to. You have to have that understanding that deep compassion and empathy within you to know that, you know, everyone comes here or is programmed with when they get here, from cradle to grave, with programming. And if you don't understand that, or you can't empathize with that, something's wrong with you. Okay? Because part of finding your spiritual compass is having morals. Okay? Being able to relate and understand with others who go through tough times, and that, you know, they're being taken for a ride. Remember, we're not any better. We're here. That says it all. We're all here. So you have to have compassion and empathy for every single case that we go over. And, you know, again, my heart goes out to Ken and all these people. Okay, it does. It's a very difficult system to decode and figure out, bordering almost on the impossible. Okay? And that's why the sovereignty and liberation aspect of what I talk about is so important. We have to care. All right? We have to be relatable with the people that we discuss. All right? Thank you.
I live a pretty sedentary life and pretty private, and I've been fortunate. People pretty much leave me alone. But, you know, if you do message me on Twitter, I'll answer.
Oh, that's great. Do you feel like that you've had after effects from this that you've had to manage within your life?
I've been attacked by spirits a time or two.
Really?
Yeah. And one of them was a relative. And it was an aunt through marriage, and she was not a nice person. And she gave me some trouble. But that was just like a one afternoon incident, and then it was over. And I had a really angry spirit come to me, and I think it was a demon. I had to drive it away, but I couldn't do it by myself. I had to have God's help. And I can see spirits every so often. I live in a really old house. This year it's 100 years old. And I believe the woman that first lived here, I've seen her walk around in here a couple times.
Oh, wow.
But the funny thing is, when a spirit knows that I can see it, they disappear, and I usually don't see them again. And I don't know why. Or sometimes I'll just see them pass by. But it's like the instant they recognize that I can see them, then they just go away. I don't know what it is. I've heard that happens to other people too. But I can sense them around me. And what I've discovered is, if I'm in a place where, like a really old place where potentially there's a lot of spirits hanging out, I've learned that drinking is not a good idea.
Interesting.
I can sense them more when I'm drinking. I can sense them more. You'd think it would dull my senses, but it doesn't. And I can sense them. And sometimes they try to talk to me. And I have had spirits like I've been to a cemetery before where I struck up conversations with the spirit. They sound like a real high-pitched squeaking sound, like a violin.
Oh, wow.
When I hear them. And I don't hear the words, but somehow the words are kind of like come to me, and I know what they're saying. And often they're confused about their death. They don't know why they're dead. They don't even know they're dead sometimes.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it does make a lot of sense, because I've spoken with people personally, quite a few, who have thought at the time, okay, remember, we're talking about people who are not aware of the soul trap and what the light is and all that stuff. Okay, and they're dealing with entities in their homes or in their lives, and they're trying to rid them out of their lives. Or not rid them out of their lives, but help them. Okay? And what they think by helping them is by getting them to the light. Like, hey, all you got to do is go to the light to free yourself and disconnect yourself from this situation. And that's what they do. And then all of a sudden, the situation that they're involved with will end. Like, they won't be there anymore. So, you know, sometimes spirits like to hang out at graveyards or in homes or at previous places of work, or they're attached to a certain land or cars or whatever the case, jobs, anything like that, where like there's something about their previous life that they're so connected with, or connected with a being related to their life that's still alive or even dead, that they just can't let go of it. They're so attached. Remember, that's the attachment part of all of this. And so they need someone to help them. And I think that's a really important thing we need to talk about, because that's why we're supposed to really take control of ourselves right away at the time of natural death. We're not going to be screwing around here. Okay, I think cordoning off ourselves outside of the matrix to our own reality, of our own making, is really what's the most important thing. Because why should we entertain anything that could possibly distract us or annoy us or get in our head or reactivate some attachment that we may have subconsciously? We have to shed all of that. Remember, we have the human body, and then, okay, so we got the human body. Well, let's just say this, the human body. Then we have like the subtle body or astral body or whatever you want to call it. And then you have your core in the center. All right, so you shed the human body. Then you set your intention at the time of natural death to shed the subtle astral body, whatever, bodies, plural, whatever. I don't know how many there are. I don't. I suspect we have the base human body, then we have the subtle astral body, and then we have our core. So there's multiple layers around us, and we need to release the first two layers to get to the core. And then the core is what we protect. We shield that core immediately. Remember, no telepathic, visual, auditory connection with any of it. Okay. Then we set our sights to leave the matrix completely. Remember, if you're having second thoughts about this, or if you doubt what I'm saying, no big deal. All I'm saying is it can't hurt you to just do this just on the off chance that I'm right. Right? So remember, if you're on the fence, just consider this. But I think hanging around is exactly what the system would want, because it gives them the upper hand. Remember, we're in their realm. We're not in our home. We're not playing home field advantage here. We're the away team, and we're playing on their field. They have all sorts of energies and different types of things available to them, different entities protecting different zones. You know, they're very aware of the moment we die. And they come swooping in like vultures. The whole point is don't give it to them. Don't give it to them. Cordon yourself off outside the matrix. A protected realm of your creation that's impenetrable and incapable of being interfered with. Then just give yourself some time, even though time doesn't exist out there. Just give yourself some time to get your memories back, get your true essence back, figure out your strengths, your weaknesses, and then figure out what you're going to do. What's wrong with that? Seriously, however many people listen to this who are on the fence, what's wrong with that option? Just to protect yourself and say, hey, you know, Maybe FC's right. Maybe FC's wrong. I don't fucking know. But I'm going to give it a shot. What's wrong with that? See, this is what I'm trying to reach to people out there who are on the fence or are still new to this. You know, just put your energy into it to protect yourself. That's all. Make your intention clear. Because you can always come back if you want to. I know I wouldn't, but, you know, if you want to come back, you could. But in the meantime, what you do is you kind of segregate yourself outside of the matrix to protect your own essence. And what is wrong with that? Nothing. If everything is so noble and just and righteous, then it can wait. It doesn't need you to bow down to it immediately. You can make your own decisions and see how you feel later. All right, so that's it.
Yeah, I talk to them if I can.
Maybe sometimes you just have to let them know that, hey, you're not in your body anymore. You might want to go to heaven or go find a new body or something, since they're kind of disoriented.
Sometimes they don't listen very well. Sometimes they're so preoccupied with their confusion that it's really hard to get through to them. Because I went up to a cemetery in Idaho Springs, Colorado, and the lady there, I was by a really old tombstone. I mean, it was so old that it was tilted, and there were a couple other tombstones there. Well, it was a woman that was there with 2 or 3 of her children. She's buried there. And she described where she died, and I saw an old wood shack, and they were sitting on the floor up against the wall, and they died there from sickness. She kept telling me, I can't leave. I have to wait for my brother. My brother's coming back for me. I have to wait for him. My brother needs to know where I am. And that's all she kept saying to me. And I couldn't get her to stop, you know. But what she was expressing was concern for others.
Yeah.
You know, I hate watching shows like on TV where, you know, there's people investigating the sightings of spirits. I hate it when they come to you with this automatic, all spirits are evil. And because they're here, they're evil. That's just not true.
Right.
They're just, in a lot of ways, they're just like us.
Yeah, somebody else that I recently had on as a guest said the reason spirits are still here is that they're in shock or don't understand that they're dead, or they love somebody else more than their self. So they're here for them, kind of like what you're saying.
Yeah, they're here for someone else.
Yeah.
Or themselves. It's either one of the two. It's an attachment usually. So yeah, it's something outside of themselves. It lines up perfectly with what I've found too.
I live in a really small community. Just across the street is an old church that was built in 1906 and is still being preserved by the local people. There was a young man in there. I brought my daughter. She was in her teens. And I brought my daughter, and we were over there. It's like a museum, and we were looking at this church. There was a spirit there that followed us home.
Oh, wow.
It followed us. My daughter kept saying, there's something weird going on, and she felt uncomfortable. So we drove like 20 miles to my parents' house, and she kept telling me, Dad, something weird followed us from that church. So she went to go lay down in a bed. Then I saw it, and it come walking behind her. And it had to pass me to get to her. And it walked past, and I saw it, and it was very handsome young man, blonde hair, probably died when he was in his late teens. And he had very old clothing on. And as soon as he saw me, he disappeared, and I smelled mothballs. So apparently the clothes he was buried in had been packed in mothballs.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I can sometimes smell them too.
Oh, that's interesting.
That relative that attacked me, that aunt, she always washed up with ivory soap. When I was a kid, she'd go by me and there is a scent to that soap. They say there's no scent, but you can smell it. And she'd walk by me and I detect that scent. Well, that's how I knew who was attacking me. It was at a family reunion. She was dead. She came to me in the spirit form. She came there to harass some relatives that she didn't like. And she came to me for a while. When she left, I smelled Ivory soap, and I knew exactly who it was.
Wow. That's interesting.
So, yeah.
All right.
So, the connection with auditory or smells or even something stupid as the phone, or computer or something outside like a bird. I don't want to say stupid, but the point is when you're dealing with the dead, or particularly like someone close to you, more often than not, you're going to have very obvious clues. Now, if you're dealing with something like a ghost or an entity that's around your property or in certain areas that you frequent regularly, there's going to be clues. You're going to be able to pick up on it very easily. You just got to pay close attention to it. Sometimes even with family members, it could be anniversary dates, or moments leading up to the anniversary date, because they know that you're thinking of them, or at least the system knows that you're thinking about them and kind of sends a dispatch telegram over telepathically to you, or through smells or synchronicities or orbs or whatever. There's so many different ways this can happen. And so, yeah, just want to put that out there. It can happen in a variety of ways. You wouldn't believe the amount of people I've talked to who have shared some very deep things with me, very personal things. I've spoken with mothers who lost daughters and sons, and adults who lost parents and grandmothers, and it is, how difficult it is to talk about something like this and say that there's a deception involved here. And it doesn't even necessarily mean, like, this is the biggest thing I try to say to people. It doesn't mean that who they're dealing with isn't the real being. Now, regardless of what I think about it, okay, it doesn't matter. Throw it aside. What I'm saying is it's authentic to them. It feels very real. And they are connecting with it on the most emotional level you can imagine. It's the realest thing they can experience, at least here. Or if they have an out-of-body experience, then it's heightened, or astral projection, whatever. But the hardest thing that I can convey to them is that you have to understand that your son, your daughter, your grandfather, your grandmother, your mother, your father, whoever, is still contained within the system at a minimum. At a minimum. Does that, I don't like saying that. It's one of the hardest things to say, but if people are watching my channel, then they kind of get where my head is at, so they can relate with it. But I don't like saying that. So at a minimum, they're still contained within the system. And we'll go on the max side, that it's a total illusion that is, or deception that is being perpetrated by an outside force like an AI system. Okay, those in my opinion are the two options of what we're dealing with. And it is so freaking hard to talk about these things and be honest about them. Because I'm not looking to hurt people's feelings. I'm not. But at the same time, it's like, I think that the hardest truth of this reality is that we're all on individual journeys here. I don't care. That's just the truth. We have a great community here, but at the end of the day, we're all on individual journeys. We pack up our bags and we leave solo. when it's our time to leave here at natural death. So, you know, the whole emotional aspect of all this is it really gets difficult after a while. It does. Because I can't separate myself. I mean, I can, but I can't. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can't shut off empathy and compassion. And I also have this very blunt and obvious kind of sometimes rageful response to what I'm seeing. Or like I'm just fed up during the day and I just kind of go off. Like, you know, you've seen it sometimes on the channel when I've done that. But I try to really keep things as centered as possible. That's the one thing I've always tried to do, is walk the center line and be honest and blunt, but also caring and compassionate for those that come to me with those types of stories. And the saving grace of it all is that, you know, they've been watching the channel. So they kind of get my style. They understand where I'm coming from, and I'm not trying to hurt them. But it's still very difficult. All right, I'm done talking about this, but I just feel it needed to be said.
Ken, before we wrap it up here, do you have a message that you would like to leave us with?
Yeah, you know, with COVID and everything, and a lot more people dying, it just bothers me so much that so many people are so frightened of dying. Mm-hmm. And you really don't need to be. It's an extension of life, actually. We get so sad when we find out that somebody died alone. We don't have to feel that way. They are taken care of. Once they leave their bodies, they are taken care of. But there's a trick to it. I got stuck in the darkness and I was attacked. And it was fear, I believe, that brought the attack to me. Call out for God. Go looking for God. If you're a person, you know you're going to die, don't be afraid. Fill your heart with love. Think about God. Think about all the wonderful things that people have done for you. Try to fill your heart with as much love as you can. And I promise, once you get to the other side, it'll be much easier for you. I would hate to hear that people die in fear, so much fear that they're crippled, and then they get attacked like I was, and you really don't have to worry about it. And I hope I'm giving you instructions that make sense, but once you've been through it, once you're separated from your body, I just know that if I'd gone looking for God, or just somehow had understood that heaven is the next step and that's where I need to go, I think I would have been much better off. That was just too little to understand.
That was a great message. And this is a really interesting podcast. I wish I wasn't worried about time, but I hope that I get you back again, because I really think we need a part 2 on this, because there's a lot more story there. And if people don't want to wait for the part 2, then go get his book. In the meantime, I think it would be a really interesting continue, because there's more there that I think we didn't get to, as well as there's more interesting stuff that happened to you after you came back. Yeah.
And things that often, if I'd share it with relatives, they just would not listen. You know, the funny thing is, as religious as my mother was, and as much as she told me that she believed me when I said I went to heaven, if I would bring up some of these incidents that happened to me, her religion would kick in. And apparently she was told that you do not deal with those things. You don't acknowledge them. You don't deal with them. You don't.
But his religion kicks in, right? We've seen that. We've seen the indoctrination kick in with him. Almost the entire interview. You know, giving himself away to an exterior power that he thinks he has to answer to. No offense, Ken. It's just, that's what we've seen. It's not a sovereign decision.
Her religion would kick in. And apparently she was told that You do not deal with those things. You don't acknowledge them. You don't deal with them. Mm-hmm. You don't accept them in your life because they're potentially evil and they can hurt you.
Right.
Well, here I was. These things are happening to me. I had no control over it, and I had to learn how to deal with it on my own.
Yeah.
So I wish people were more educated about it, because you don't have to go through all that crap.
Yeah.
And the worst of it is how people judge each other down here.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? I was in the presence of Jesus, but when I told some church-going people that one time I was attacked by a demon, they backed up and they referred to their religion, and they said, we were taught the people that don't live their lives correctly are the only ones that ever get attacked by those things. You need to go to church. Oh, please. Don't give me that. Self-righteous, I go to church every day stuff, and I'm living my life better than you. Don't do it. Mm-hmm. Never tell a near-death experiencer that they don't have enough faith in God. Oh, come on. That's a stretch, you know?
Yeah.
Don't see. He's just talking about his mother. Meanwhile, we're getting the same indoctrination by him. So he contradicts himself, you know, not even 30, 60 seconds later.
Death experiencer that they don't have enough faith in God. Oh, come on. That's a stretch, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah. Okay.
All right, Ken. Well, I really appreciate it. I appreciate you giving me your time today.
Well, thank you.
And I hope you have a wonderful evening.
Yeah, you too. I'm about ready to have a strong drink.
Oh.
Good night.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right. I would like to thank again the JeffMara Podcast for sharing this video. And I want to encourage people to head on over and subscribe to him. If you'd like to continue your research with a bunch of near-death experiencer cases, he interviews lots of people and asks a lot of great questions. That's what I really like about Jeff is he's very diverse in the field of experiencers that he interviews, and he asks really great questions. And over the years, I've noticed that the questions get better and better. So, you know, I tip my hat to Jeff. I really do. And I hope you go, you know, if you're looking for doing your own personal research on the side. And as I say, almost every video, everyone should be doing their own research into this Matrix reincarnation soul trap, because I'm not here to convince everyone just by my videos. Everyone has to take the step and do their own research, because that's the only way you can really prove it to yourself. Seeing the deception involves consuming loads and loads and loads of cases, not just with NDEs, but all the other topics I talk about. Past life regressions, pre-birth memories, shared death experiences, breakthrough trip reports, and on and on and on. I mean, there's so many. There's like over 20 different examples. I'm not going to rattle them all off, but it's really, really important that we all do our own research, especially if you're on the fence, or especially like if you're new and still kind of, you know, on the fence, or like, you know, entertaining the idea of the Matrix reincarnation soul trap. The other thing I'll say is the only two researchers I trust as far as the soul trap goes, the soul trap, I'm not talking about, you know, near-death experience research. I'm talking about soul trap research. Wayne Bush at trickedbythelight.com and Dan at overwatchproject.com and Overwatch channel on YouTube and Overwatch Project on Odyssey. You can also go to his website to find out more. But I also, you know, highly recommend checking out Wayne's website. It's a plethora, just filled with information. And he's a good man, good heart. I love Wayne. And, you know, we did, what was it, 9 interviews together. We're going to do more this year. And, you know, we're also going to have a combination of, or three-way conversation with Dan, Wayne, and myself sometime this year as well. So I'm really, really looking forward to that. I want to welcome John Doe to the Last Timers Club. Thank you for joining us. Enjoy. John Doe, just so you know, the level 2 membership includes, there's a bunch of old live streams dating back to last year, and there's a playlist for the Last Timers Club. I'll be sure to include that right before we sign off today. And also every month there is a live stream that is included with your membership for the level 2. So thank you for joining and for your support. Okay. So, yeah, please check out Wayne's website. Please check out Dan. Again, as I've been saying more recently, and the reason I'm saying it is because I'm telling you guys, I've seen all the Soul Trap crap. All of it. Okay? There's very few people I'm not aware of that are covering this topic in the right way. And the only ones I see really doing the heavy lifting are Wayne and Dan, and obviously myself. And not like mixing in stuff. We're basing things on experiencer data. We're not just throwing things at you and saying, hey, trust me. Just trust me. It's the Palladians, it's the Galactic Warriors coming to get you. They've got us all. No. I'm showing the examples of the fuckery right in our face. And so is Dan. So is Wayne. That's why I trust them, because we're all doing the same thing. It's when things trail off into this, into that, and blah, blah, blah. And that, I'm going to say something, and guess what? You're just going to have to trust me. You're just going to have to trust me. No. I like to back up my research with everything that I can. So, and so does Dan, and so does Wayne. Sources and bringing you right to the heart of the experiencer in modern times, and old accounts too. Old accounts that kind of match up with the current data from experiencers, because there's a lot of old stuff. I mean, this stuff goes way back. And, even though, again, like I've gone through Hinduism, I've gone through Buddhism, Gnosticism, all this stuff long before I got here. And, even though those three are close, they still miss the mark. They still miss the mark because they want you to trust them. They want, like, for instance, I was having a conversation earlier with someone who joined the Discord server about the Tibetan Book of the Dead, the false light. The Tibetan Book of the Dead is an absolutely amazing book to go through. But you know what? At the end of the day, the whole damn thing's a deception. You have to go through the Bardo realms and the lights and the false lights and and then hopefully you'll make it out the other end okay. But you know why these systems exist? They exist because they resonate with people. They are the closest mainstream sources to the truth. They're so close, and people resonate with them because they're so damn close to the truth. That's why people resonate with them. You see? I mean, that's why I got stuck in these damn things. I almost became a Zen Buddhist monk, for Christ's sake. I was this close. If I didn't have something else going in my life and just didn't feel right about it, I was so damn close to being sucked up into that. But I knew something was missing. So close. I can't even tell you how close. I mean, I was talking to the monks about joining everything. It was so close. But I knew something wasn't right. The karma thing didn't make sense with the functionality of the world. It didn't jive. The judgment, the shaming, the sinning, the karma, you name it, throw it all out there. All the same crap. All these religions have the same type of bullshit. I mean, Gnosticism's a little more harsher and more on point in general. But then so are the Buddhists. Everything's an illusion. The Hindus, it's an illusion. And it is. We're in such a, I hate to say it, low density form. But that's the truth. We're in like the lowest density. I mean, a 3D world. We're just in this meat suit. This place is so fucked up. So fucked up. I don't even know how I do this sometimes. I really don't. But I know it's important to share the information. I mean, I just rack my head sometimes and I just can't believe what is happening here. I can't believe we have all fallen for this bullshit when we are so ridiculously powerful. I don't want to get low. I don't want to end this stream on a low. I don't. But just remember how powerful you are. Remember that you don't need to answer to fucking anyone. No one. You are your own master. You are your own guru. No gurus. I'm not a guru. I don't want guru status. I don't want fans. I hate that word fan. I don't want fans. We're just all seekers. All right? We're all seekers. And sovereignty and liberation is our way out of here. It's the only thing that makes sense. What else makes sense? Again, anyone on the fence, why risk it? Why risk it? I look at this every day and I say to myself, I am so thankful. I am so lucky. See, this is where the appreciation aspect of things comes in. I am so freaking thankful that we are in this time period where we have access to all this information. But I'm also basing it off of who I am in this incarnation. I'm basing it off of, I'm very analytical, but I'm also very spiritual, but I had to build up that spiritual aspect. I was way more analytical in my younger years. And even though I still have that, but I had to burst through this huge veil to find that spiritual side and fight for it for every goddamn thing I can imagine. Pushing and shoving the whole damn way. But if I didn't have the analytical side with the data patterns, the endless data patterns that prove this whole thing is happening beyond recognition, the Matrix Reincarnation Soul Trap is real. It's happening. I know it's happening. And I'm just trying to inform as many people as I can. And again, as I talk about regularly, I don't know how much longer we have this free internet. I hope it lasts for the remainder of my lifetime and all of your lifetimes and beyond this. I really do. But something inside me tells me we're reaching a tipping point with all this, where there may be some sort of big event that kind of leads us to like a whole reorganization of the internet. Now, I hope I'm wrong. I really do. But because the same clowns that, started this crap the last couple years did a similar exercise on the internet, leaves me wondering, why would they do it? Unless they were planning to probably fulfill that destiny or that agenda. So that's why I'm doing 2 streams a week. I really don't want to. I don't. But I understand, like, I'm pushing forward and putting this information out there because I realize how important it is. Like, we have to get the word out. We really do. It's so obvious. It's so freaking obvious, my friends. Please help me get the word out. I don't care about money. I don't. I care about getting the word out. I'm appreciative, of course, of everyone who supports the channel, but at the end of the day, it's about the message. That's the key thing. And honestly, you know what? I'm going to look it up right now. When I don't really pay attention to the YouTube emails, but I'm going to show you guys. This shit's crazy. And again, I'm not about statistics, okay? I'm really not. Hold on. But I'm gonna share what I just realized this 2 months ago. They sent me, all right, so this is crazy. So the Soul Trap thing is kicking off, and I know it has a lot to do with each of you out there. The funny thing is I took a poll about I don't know, I think it was maybe a month ago. I took a poll and I asked people how they found the channel. And I think it was something like 25 or 30% said they found the channel through YouTube, through, being recommended. And then I think the 75% said that they found it through, okay. Okay, well, the last 28 days, get this, no surprise. Okay, so I was pretty close. I remember, when I did it, I think it was 25% or 30% said that they found it through YouTube. And then the remaining 75%, let's just say, found it through like Discord or on the web or wherever. Non-YouTube recommendations. All right. And so, but this month it says 33%, of course, found it through browsing. So that means recommended. And then exterior was like 22.5% plus a bunch of, other things like suggested. So anyways, the word is getting out there. That's what I'm saying. But I want to really direct you to this number. This is crazy. When I saw this, and I didn't realize this, but it's been going on for months. All right. So May, last month, we had 538 new subscribers, 48,000 views. So that means 48,000 people watched videos and 1.5 million minutes watched. Like, again, I'm not about numbers, but I realize that when I share this information, I realize how important it is. I'm not looking to mess with people. I'm not. I'm speaking honestly. I'm just saying, look out for yourself. I realize that with this type of platform that this channel's kind of reached, that there is an obligation along with it. And I've always stuck with that. I didn't care when I was doing videos and I was getting, 10, 20 people watching. I was always looking to just convince, or not convince, but just talk with one person and reason with them about what I see and hope that maybe they see it. That's it. That's been my whole goal the entire time. And I'm telling you, that's May, okay? And it's been like this, all right? So April, 637 new subscribers, almost 50,000 views, and 1.6 million minutes watched. So that's 2 months in a row. Okay, in March, 826 new subscribers, 30,000 total views, 1 million minutes watched. I don't take that lightly. People are connecting with the information, and I know it has a lot to do with all of you and with how logical the message is, right? I mean, is it just me, or is it easy to see? I mean, it really is. It's common sense when you really boil it down. And please just always tell people to do their own research. Do your own research, because even though, myself, Wayne, Dan can all throw this stuff out there, at the end of the day, it's like a drop in the bucket what we're throwing out there in comparison to, the amount of NDEs you can plow through, or pre-birth experiences, or past lives, or life between lives, or whatever you want to call it. And breakthrough trip reports, and shared death experiences, and on and on and on, all this stuff. Again, my channel should only be a stepping stone. Remember, like, if you watch here and continue watch here, thank you. But at the end of the day, nobody needs my channel. Everyone can stop watching tomorrow, but as long as you kind of have the outline of what's going on, you can go out and research yourself. That's all that matters. My channel should only be a stepping stone. But we also have this awesome community that's developed. And, it really, that feels good. It does. Because for as much as everyone out there, so many leave so many nice comments, and I'm sorry, I just can't respond to all of them. There's just so many now. But I see almost all of them, and I appreciate and love each and every one of you. But just think that, we're all kind of here for like a therapy almost. We're like looking out for each other. Like, that's why I love the Discord too. There's so many amazing, smart people, like in the comment section here, in the Discord, in the live chats. I mean, it's incredible. I get so much information off you guys, and please keep the information coming. Send the links, send everything you got. The other thing is please read my, comment. I try to post it in as many videos as I can, but sometimes I forget about the whole thing going on with the comment section. Okay, I'm not deleting your comments. Okay, I'm not. All right. It seems like there's multiple filters that come through the whole YouTube thing, and even though I have my settings set up in a certain way so that everyone can leave whatever the hell they want. You should be able to leave anything on my channel. Tons of it gets deleted. Not by me, but by you. Okay? I'm not doing it. And then some of them end up in this held for review section, and there's so many of them now. And I just don't have time to go through them. I just approve. So sometimes you may leave a comment and maybe it doesn't appear or something, but maybe it'll appear like a week or two later. I only have time to maybe go in that like once, twice a week, if that. And, but you know, anyone who comes and comments, I try to just set you to like, they have this way to auto approve people, which it should be that way anyways. I shouldn't have to do this manually for every single person that comments, but once I see your name, I just automatically approve everyone. But even with that, I've found people's comments still getting deleted. And the only reason I know that it's happening is, you know, obviously some of you are telling me that, you know, FC, did you delete my comment? No, I didn't delete your comment. Okay. No, what I see is like it pops up, and this is what I think goes on. This is my opinion. This has to be what's going on. Okay, so they have an algorithm in place. So my stream ends, and you know, right now, whatever's in the chat actually sticks. And the other thing let me just say this about the live stream, and you should do this for any live stream you're watching on YouTube. You see how, okay, so go to the chat, go to the top of the window. You notice how it says top chat? It should always be clicked to live chat, because otherwise you're likely going to miss a ton of people who are chatting live. So some people may be talking and others will understand it and some won't. And then they're like, what the hell is the context for whatever that person's saying? Or they don't see what that person's saying, or they'll see part of the one message and not the other. And it's all screwed up. So anytime you come in a live chat, always, instead of having it on live chat, top chat, click live chat. Okay, that's the other one. There was one other thing I was going to say, but now I forgot. I derailed myself. So yeah, this is what I think goes on in the comment section. I think essentially, like YouTube has like this scanning AI type system, and even though, again, my settings are wide open, anyone should be able to leave anything they want to write or leave links to anything. And what I think it does is it kind of runs like an initial scan for whatever you comment. And then it goes through. And then sometimes I'll even see a notification of your comment. But when I go to click your comment, the comment's magically gone. Okay? So I think what it does is it kind of runs it through like an initial scanning tool or something, and then it kind of comes back around and scans it again, and it says, okay, let me nuke that one. So I can even see, sometimes I'll see like a sentence or two of what you guys will write, but then I go to click it, deleted. So, you know, again, just look out for that comment in the comment section. It kind of gives you an idea of possible ways, no guarantees, but possible ways on how to kind of get around it and make your comments stick. But again, I make no promises. It is what it is. The one thing I do find is if you're leaving longer comments, or even any comment, like if you want to make your comment stick, save it in an app, like a notepad or a memo pad, like on your computer or your phone, and just save it and set it aside, and then come back later. And if you see it, okay, you're probably good. But if it's not there, then, you know, you may want to post it again and put part one, and maybe just put like, you know, 3 sentences, and then comment below that initial comment. You know, don't clog up the whole comment section, but, you know, your main comment, and then post one after another to make them stick. That's what I've found has worked on channels that I've communicated with. But you know what's crazy is my own damn responses have been deleted on my damn channel. Figure that one out. So I've responded to people, detailed responses, and they've deleted my own comments. How does that work out? All right. So anyways. All right. Hey, Pale Horse Rider. Good to see you, my friend. Hope you're doing well. Abstract, Session, Soul, Enemy, PKOSB, Ed, Boopster, and Elizabeth. Hey. Carl, good to see you. All right, so we're going to wrap things up today, my friends. Feel free to join us in the Discord server. Oh, wait, no. I have a few more things to go over. I apologize. All right, so I have 2 YouTube backup channels. Just in case something should ever happen here, please check the description tab for those. And the other thing is I also get notifications, or not notifications, comments from some of you. Well, they are notifications, but comments from some of you saying that you're not getting notifications about the live streams. And I go, oh, I missed the live stream and I didn't get a notification. The only solution I have is to select the bell for all. Now, like, they have like a personalized and then they have a none. If it's not selected to all, you're probably not going to get them, or maybe you'll get them like once a month. I stream usually twice a week and on the weekend. So it'll be either a Friday or a Saturday and a Sunday. So, or a Saturday and a Sunday, something like that. So that's usually the schedule here. So I'm not going to harass you too much. And then the backup channels, they're just sitting there. They're the only reason they'll be activated is if they need to be activated. So please consider subscribing to those backup channels and hitting the bell for all. Maybe one of the channels will become a clips channel down the road for very shortened clips, but I'm still not even sure about that. I also have an Instagram where I've done 3 exclusive videos, live stream videos on there about the NDE and DMT experience crossover and how they prove the soul trap and how they connect, obviously. And then I also have a Twitter where, these are places to alternatively stay in touch. And I have a D Live where I've thought about doing exclusive live streams, but haven't yet. And I have a Odyssey where I have done exclusive live streams a few times and plan to do more in the near future. So if you're on Odyssey, please check me out there. That's also available in the description. And I also have YouTube memberships for anyone interested in joining the Last Timers Club. For levels 2 and 3, I have, there's a backlog of live streams, topic specific to the soul trap and very thorough. And if you're interested in joining, feel free. And then, also, I have Stream Elements, where if you'd like to support the channel in some way through credit card securely, you're more than welcome to do that as well, and very much appreciated. Just please remember that, all of the important information related to the soul trap will always be for free. But if you want a little added content each month, consider joining the YouTube memberships, or if I also have the website coming soon where I'll also be doing additional live streams there. And we'll get into that when the announcement's ready to come. But please remember that the most important thing is getting this information out for free. I put a lot of time and effort into this, but it's never, ever going to cost money for the important information. But if you want the added content each month, feel free to join us with the Last Timers Club. And thank you again for every single one of you out there who has supported the channel. And for those of you who are even just listening today, sharing it, all that stuff, I appreciate each and every one of you. Much love and blessings to you all. And if you want to join us in the Discord server, we're going to have a voice chat after the stream, which is coming up right now. Thank you. See you next weekend, my friends. Oh, by the way, Dan is coming back on Friday. That's going to be Friday, June 10th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Dan from Overwatch channel. Thank you.